call them, or you can just come on down here and ask her a question face to face. Maybe one of the reasons why I'm in a bad mood is while it's technically not fall yet, the rain and fog this morning has put us in a mood. Both Marjorie and I came to the library this morning whining about a whole bunch of things, including how summer's over. It's not just the rain, it's noticeably darker in the morning. Get this, at the beginning of August, sunrise was 5:35 a.m. Today it was 6:20.
It's brutal.
And to make matters worse, it's already been pumpkin spice everything season since the middle of last month. So, are you rejoicing at the cozy sweater weather to come, or are you lamenting the end of summer, even if we rationally know there's still some warm days ahead? And if you are, we want to know how you're coping with the seasonal change. Give us a call or a text, 877-301-8970. You can tweet us at BOS Public Radio. I cannot stand 1 second of this, not a second.
You mean you're upset about the end of summer?
I am upset about the end of summer.
I'm very upset about the end of summer. But you know something?
No.
Even though you just read these daylight savings or saving time or whatever.
And daylight savings is going to be going on November 6th.
That's right.
That's another thing.
That's right. But at least it's November 6th, thanks to, I think it was Ed Markey was a big push
pushed
behind
it back,
that.
yeah.
Our senator. Any case, the good thing about the daylight saving time, you know what's good about it?
No.
That we have not as yet screwed up our relationship between Earth and the sun, so that we can count on these sunrises getting later and earlier. We can't count on the seasons anymore. That's what's so upsetting about the end of this summer. We had a drought all summer. Now, it was great if you went to the beach, and it was wonderful. I love the hot weather. It's wonderful to go to the beach. But, next summer, you know what could happen next summer, Jim?
No.
It may be hotter, but it could rain all summer.
Is that true?
Yes. We
can't
count on the 4 seasons anymore. Everything is changing. So at least the daylight and the times of the sunrise and the sunset are still reasonably predictable until we mess up our relationship with the sun.
Okay, fine. Now, can I respond to that in 2 ways?
Yep.
One, I have absolutely no idea what you were talking about. And number 2, if you want to be optimistic, I'll be optimistic too. Do you hear what Zoe, our colleague, said? We were discussing this morning. The good news is it's going to be summer year-round in about a year or two with climate change.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have to worry. 877-301-8970. By the way, we already have a comment on YouTube. I assume they're referencing me when Blue Mama 5 writes, "Must be dressed down Tuesday at the library." To which I say, what do you care? What do you care what I'm wearing at the library?
My pale blue.
You look quite nice,
I have
actually.
my pale blue summer sweater on.
Sort of like a coastal
grandmother kind of thing. That's right. It's supposed to be loose, and you are supposed to be white or beige.
Well, you are white.
I am white, but you're supposed to be white or beige for the summer outfits. But you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day. Did you know that? That's another depressing thing. You're supposed to put away all your white clothes. And I have a beautiful shell pocketbook. You're supposed to put that away too after the summertime.
Speaking of being white, do you mind if I tell the story about when many years ago?
No, you told this a million times.
When we went to Sylvia's, which is one of the most famous restaurants in Harlem many years ago, with a producer
before Harlem was gentrified.
From our old radio station. We were the guy by the name of Corey, who was a young guy with whom we worked. And we're walking from Sylvia's to our car, and Corey turns to Marjorie out of the blue and says
that I was the whitest woman he'd ever seen.
Exactly. 877-301-8970.
It's the redheaded complexion is a problem for us all.
I understand that.
Anyway, another good thing I read this morning in these stories in anticipation of talking about this is that it is okay for us to feel bad about this, to feel sad about this. People always say, "Oh,
I hate these kind of stories."
You're not well. It's okay to feel sad.
Express your feelings about your sadness.
Well, no, that
about
you think you can't feel sad because you're not in the middle of the war zone in Ukraine or something like that. But somebody else always has it worse. So you should not be so involved with yourself that you're going to feel sad about something like the end of summer. But it's okay to feel sad about the end of summer. And we can also be grateful here that we're not in the Pacific Northwest. Did you read this story?
No.
Their summer's been ruined. They can't even go outside in the summertime because it was so hot there in the summertime. So at least here,
Southern California,
it was really, really hot here. But at least you could. Not on every day, because some days it was too hot to go out, which is really horrible to be huddled inside in the summertime, watching movies on Netflix when you could be out enjoying the sunshine. That's the other thing. If it's too hot, we won't be able to go out.
Okay, so we'll get to your calls in a second, or your texts or something at 877-301-8970. But in light of the fact that we've been given permission by whoever that loser was who wrote and said we should express our feelings, I will express my feelings.
Yeah.
Do you know why this transition from summer to fall is worse? in my estimation.
Because it's darker longer.
One, because I read this in one of our stories this morning, which is true. It's the first semi-normal summer we've had since COVID. So in many ways, we appreciate it more because there's a lot more freedom. And secondly, you enter this fall, any sane person enters fall with a hell of a lot of trepidation. Midterm elections could be, we're going to talk to Michael Kirk about this in the 1 o'clock hour from Frontline. This could be, I mean, it's not hyperbolic to say the beginning of the end, the next step towards the end of democracy. While there was great news out of Ukraine this weekend, that war for democracy continues with Ukrainians being slaughtered by these sadistic Russians. I mean, it's a tough fall, you know?
Did you read the story this morning about how many people have mysteriously fallen out of windows or been fallen off boats?
Oh, the Russian banker guy who was in the hospital and just fell out of the hospital window?
Fell out the hospital window.
He's an opponent of Putin,
Some guy fell off a boat. He fell off a boat. He was out in a boat having a wonderful time, but he said something wrong about Putin. He mysteriously fell off the boat, and they couldn't find him for days. All the people that have mysteriously windows boats or had poison from venom from toads. Did you know about toad venom?
Yes, I do.
Well, I know about it now. I just want to tell you, some things never change around here. We're talking about the summer, being depressed about summer, and all Al from Lynn wants to know is, how many votes did Joe Biden lose from the presidential traffic jam yesterday in Dorchester?
Yeah, I hear it was pretty bad, actually. We're going to talk, Michelle Wu was there, by the way, for the moonshot discussion as well as the infrastructure discussion at Logan. 877-301-8970. You want to actually talk to a listener, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I just want to read one more. Paul in Braintree says, Jim, don't go to Home Depot. They have the Christmas trees out for sale already.
No, but the Halloween stuff, I mean, it is so, it's not original to make these points. It's from the pumpkin spice crap to the Halloween stuff. It's just, summer is so luxurious and
great.
So wonderful. And when it begins to disappear like this, it's a downer, but I assume some of you are going to help us with the transition. Let's start with Ron. We have absolutely no idea where you're from, but wherever you are, welcome to the show. Hi, Ron.
Hi, I'm from Seabrook.
Oh, Seabrook. Sorry.
Oh, you're right on the ocean up there.
Hi, what's up?
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
You know, people that live near the beach wait for this time of year. All the nuts have gone home. You know, the kids are back in school, and the water's still warm. I went swimming yesterday.
Well, that's pretty great.
You know, you can enjoy this period before it gets really cold and enjoy the beach.
Yeah, that's
Ron,
a great point, Ron. Thanks.
When you're driving home Labor Day on up Route 6 in Cape Cod,
did you?
toward the bridge, yes, I did drive home on
Labor Day. You did?
On Labor Day.
Wow.
It was on Monday.
Yeah.
Lots of people stand on the bridges with these signs.
I know.
Good riddance. See you later. Glad you're going home. So there's more parking spaces at the beaches, because the beaches were packed this summer, obviously, because it was so hot. 877-301-8970. Oh, Mike is from Quincy. He says he's at the library. Is Mike in the audience somewhere who says that we're... Oh, there he is.
Mike.
Mike just said we're a couple of Debbie Downers today. That's what Mike said.
We're Debbie Downers every day, Mike, but thank you for your contribution to the show.
You were a Debbie Downer. I try to be cheerful, Jim. I try to look at
I decided
glass
to do,
half full.
because of the occasion, because I was feeling bad, I decided to dress down today. I don't know if you've noticed. 877-301-8970. Rob from Salem, just to make things worse, has already been putting up my Halloween decorations. By the way, you know, I assume some people are listening and saying, I don't like hot weather, I don't like all that sort of stuff. I'm not the most social creature, I would acknowledge that. Would you not agree, when you have fewer clothes on, we have less clothing on, your relationship to the world is a lot better. You have a much better... Why are you making a face?
I don't know if that's true.
Of course it's true. Your relationship to other human beings who you don't know is warmer and more intimate
that's true.
Than it is in horribly cold weather.
Huddled up in all your winter clothing. I mean, I think the thing about fall is winter's coming. That's the problem. Winter's coming, but thanks to climate change, the winter will probably not be that warm.
You know what another outrage
cold, rather.
Has me upset about fall, and we'll get back to the goals, is the fact that Laura Linney has never won an Emmy for her character in Ozark. It's unbelievable.
She is a great actor.
She is brilliant, and she didn't win last night. Elaine in Cambridge, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about this sad, at least for us, transition from summer to fall. Hey there, Elaine, what's up?
Hi. It's not sad for me at all. I love
that?
September.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful month.
Why is that?
It's still summer. Nice to have rain. Tomorrow's going to be 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And I like having the sunrise later because I can sleep better. So September, I think, is summer's best-kept secret.
Well, that's a beautiful way to put it.
You have a
Elaine.
lot of
Thank
people,
you.
Elaine, who agree with you. Listen to this.
What do
This
they
is from
say?
Jay from Swansea. Give me a crisp, cool autumn day, every day, all year. Sweaters, jeans, fresh apple cider, sitting around the fire at night. I want it all. And Kay in Saugus says, this is cozy sweater weather, going to big yard sales at my local, yarn sales at my local yarn store in Burlington.
Can I respond to that?
Nothing like a yarn
Biggest
sale.
pile of crap I've ever heard in my life. You know what the problem is? Getting back to Elaine. Elaine, thanks for the call. You know what follows this beautiful month of
Yes.
rain and then warmth? Winter.
I just said that, Jim.
Oh, you did?
I did say that.
Well,
yes,
I wanted to
did.
emphasize the point.
It's okay.
877-301-8970.
Let's go to, that was Elaine in Cambridge. We're moving
was
on
Elaine.
to
Nice to
from
talk to you,
Cambridge.
Elaine.
We're moving on to someone else as soon as
Goodbye,
we get the
Elaine.
signal here.
It's not Elaine's fault.
Oh, it's not Elaine's fault.
No, it's not. 877-301-8970 is our phone
Boy,
number.
a lot of people in the texters, they are big into fall. They love it.
And why is that, do you think?
Well, the bugs are gone. The beaches are less crowded. The water is still warm. I mean, there's a lot of, the foliage starts to turn. Christine from Worcester says it's the best season of the year. No more nasty bugs, no more humidity, no more scorching heat. It was a little too hot this summer. You got to concede that.
It was not too hot.
You couldn't go outside, Jim, on some
Yes,
days.
you could.
If you have a porch in the summertime, you can't go out and sit in the porch because it's too hot. That's not really
Well,
fun.
you know when else you can't go sit in the porch? February 15th. That's when you can't go sit on the porch, and that's coming rapidly. David Lynn, what's your deal? Hi, Dave. Welcome to the show. What's up?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Great show. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, a couple things. Pumpkin spice beers, that just really pushes me over the edge. It's like one of the worst things ever.
Thank you for
Those
that.
things start coming out in July. But, I have to say, I do embrace pumpkin spice for one thing. It's a little jar that I have made by Schilling, whatever it is, and you sprinkle it into your French toast batter, and it's mostly cinnamon anyway. It's the only place that really goes for that. And, Jim, the only good thing about it, and I know you'll relate to this 110%,
Yeah.
fall means braised foods like short ribs and cassoulet and
No,
all
that
the
has-
good things that are starting to come.
That actually is a fairly valid point. Dave, thank you very much for your phone call. Do you eat pumpkin spice anything or no?
No.
You're not a real sweet. Well, you are a sweet. You do like sweets.
Oh, I
kind
do
of
like
thing.
sweets.
So what's it about that?
It just doesn't appeal to me in my coffee. I mean, I like pumpkin pie, but
You do.
I don't really want to have pumpkin things in my coffee.
Pumpkin
or
pie is
vanilla
my favorite
things
pie, by the way. Do you know that?
I did not know that, Jim.
Well, that's I'm telling you
Well,
right
I'm
now.
very excited about that.
Thank you. 877-301-8970. You said a minute ago you didn't think that having less clothing on was an appealing thing that makes life better in a lot of ways. Is that just because you want to disagree with me, or because you really
No,
think
I mean
that
it is true. I mean, if you have a heavy parka on, your boots,
Exactly.
you're not really getting
you feel
close,
freer,
close to
you
people.
feel
This is
more
because
connected to the world, to other people?
When people used to take the subways, that would be you. When you used to
Yeah.
take the subways, Jim, you liked that in the summertime. I understand. Girls in their summer dresses, wasn't this?
What was
isn't
it? Who
what it's
wrote
about?
that fabulous short story? You gave it to me many years ago.
Irvin Shaw. Yeah, Irvin
Yeah,
Shaw was
Irvin
great.
Shaw.
It was great.
Brilliant.
The other thing about this summer is that was sad is the hydrangeas. People losing their. Remember that piece in the Globe? They had to apologize to their plants because they had to watch the plants all die in
Is that
front of
Beth
them. because of-
Teitel? I can't remember.
Yeah, Beth Teitel wrote it. It was a really good piece. A lot of people lost their crops. I mean, they were worried about the corn crops. I went by a vineyard in Rhode Island last week. They had all these like almost cheesecloth type stuff over the
horrible.
trees because of the sun scorching everything. You saw a lot of scorched plants this summer, and that was kind of tough.
It is sad. 877-301-8970. We'll take one more call, and then, by the way, this person writes back, Jim, I can't make out the T-shirt. Looks like the small line on an eye chart. It's a Provincetown T-shirt. I was in Provincetown a couple of weeks ago. It's a Provincetown T-shirt. Thank you very
Paul
much.
from Worcester also wants you to stop talking about your comfort while not wearing clothes. He says that's something no one can unsee in their minds.
No, I didn't say not wearing clothing at all. I said... I knew that. I knew it smarter. Let's take a break.
Let's take a break. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Don't break. Look at the faces of the people walking down
That's right.
Boylston Street.
They're miserable.
You tell me there weren't more smiles on those faces a month ago? Look at these. These are the most miserable people I've ever seen in my life.
It's raining. They're under hoods.
Exactly.
Okay. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, and Jim Browder's getting himself all worked up into a frenzy over this discussion. I'm going to keep talking about it for a few more minutes. Like I said, this is Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
the MBTA.
So crews can repair tracks and signals and make station upgrades.
Will the repairs make our public transit more reliable?
We're just at MBTA stops that have shuttle lines for the Orange Line, and we're just assisting students to get on the line and if they have questions.
We are doing everything possible to make sure that this is on time, reliable, and dependable.
30 days to save the T. Follow all the updates at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and the Village Bank. These days, we all need to feel connected. The ability to connect with your money is in your hands with the Village Bank's digital banking solutions. Village-bank.com. Member FDIC, member DIF. And South County, Rhode Island. You can see Misquamicut Beach transform into the mythical city of Atlantis for the first annual Atlantis Rising, an international sand sculpture event, October 7th through 10th. SouthCountyRI.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're talking about the horrible transition, at least from our perspective, particularly my perspective, from summer to fall at 877-301-8970. The mayor will be joining us at the library live in about 40 minutes if you have questions or comments for her. So I actually agree with this positive soul. Aaron from Hopkinton. Jim, Marjorie, breathe, grab an apple cider and cider donut. Cider donut is my favorite sweet thing in the world. Relax, we're going to be okay. Does Jim need a hug? I don't think so, but thank you. And then listen to this. Denise from Dennis. Yes, here are my feelings. I hate fall, especially this year with all these MAGA lunatics running for office while some are already in office. Eek. Today's my day off. I'm in a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops. I live on the Cape and work at the Cape Chamber, where fall is called second summer. Well, Denise sort of has my perspective on the whole deal.
You know, a lot of parents, when my kids were little, I was totally down with this too. The best part of fall is sending the kids back to school so you get the kids out of the house. Listen to this from Robin Dover. As a stay-at-home father, September is amazing. After Camp Dad all summer, it's nice to send the kids to school and have a quiet, clean house for a few hours during the week. So there are some people that do love the fall. But so does this person. Listen to this. She's passionate about it. Down with summer. I hate the mosquitoes, the sweat, the sunburns. I love apple crisp, pumpkin pie, Thanksgiving, and taking walks and enjoying the beautiful colors. That's from Allison in Webster.
Well, Lynn on YouTube says, now that Marjorie knows that Jim's favorite pie is pumpkin pie, is there a pumpkin pie of the month club for his next Christmas present? And some guy, you know who Kirk Carapaz is?
I do. He's one of our colleagues. He's one of our colleagues, covers education.
Another loser.
He loves...
Love this time of year, says Kirk. Labor Day through Thanksgiving, low humidity, no snow, and when the Sox have their act together, which they don't, Kirk, playoff baseball. You know what Kirk's one of the K's in center field. You know that.
That's right. That's
Kirk
right.
and his buddies.
Holds up, what
the K's for strikeouts.
Yeah, for strikeouts.
They were in the Globe like a month ago. I think in August. There was a whole story about it.
What section of that is called? The Big Monster or something?
No, it's not called the Big Monster. Oh my God.
The Golden Monster.
No, you've only lived here your whole life, so there's the Golden Monster. That's right. It's the Golden Monster in left field where Manny Ramirez used to go in to pee. Did you ever walk inside the wall?
No, but Stan Grossfeld, the great photographer of the Boston Globe, did a book about different spots in Fenway, and he said that was one of the most disgusting places.
It is one of the most disgusting things
some players
inside
sneak
the wall.
in from the outfield and use...
They pee in there.
They're peeing.
Manny Ramirez used to pee in there during the games, by the way. So, in any case, by the way, if you do a tour of Fenway, which is huge fun, you get to go inside. We can go inside. You don't have to go inside the wall. And by the way, you know what the nice thing is? If you take the tour, they make you pee inside the wall just so you can be part of the experience kind of thing. Okay, yourself.
Susan in Marblehead, thank you for calling.
Hey, Susan, what's going on?
Hi. Well, Jim, first of all, I just want to say that you have the perfect wardrobe, Jim, for radio.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining the crusade.
We are, of course, at the Boston Public Library, Susan. You know what I mean?
There's not a dress code here at the library, as far as I know, Susan and Marjorie, but that's okay. Okay.
You got to be comfortable to read.
Thank you.
The other thing, I have no children, and so September is the time when I usually go and take a vacation simply because I can have the beach to myself and sit with my dog. And let's be real, winter is the new fall because I was swimming in the ocean, I think it was October 3rd last year. So I go with Columbus Day being the end of the season. That's when all the clam shacks shut down, and that's when most of the summer activities or museums or whatever will change to their winter hours. But I'm all for stretching it out as long as you can, and the winters are long enough. So let's just cling to it. And I don't want to smell any pumpkin anything until like November.
You sound, even though I don't agree with anything you said, Susan, you sound, no, she sounds totally self-assured and happy. And Susan, thank you for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. We're talking about what, at least for me, and I think Marjorie, I'm not quite sure, is the painful transition from summer to fall.
There's a melancholy that a lot of people feel at the end of the summer, and apparently it's quite common, and we should not feel. We should embrace.
Well, that's like seasonal affective disorder. I'm not talking about
our melancholy. Jim.
Right. I'm not talking about a mental health issue, even though that is a big deal. I'm talking about just normal reaction to seasonal change.
And we have a lot of reaction among the texters about your remarks about wearing less clothing.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear them.
Ellen in New Jersey makes a very good point. She says most people should wear more clothing.
Not less.
Not less. And, somebody else complained about men's unkempt feet in their sandals in the summer.
No, that is a real
It's not
problem.
a very freeing and joyful sense to see people who should probably not take their shoes off have their shoes off.
Let me just tell you something. As somebody who's been in radio for a couple of years, I don't think men's feet is exactly a topic that attracts a huge number of listeners,
Well, apparently the texters are into it, Jim. They don't feel that looking at men's unkept feet in the summertime is free and joyful.
Don't look at them is, I guess, my position. But you do agree with me. By the way, you're the one that gave me that fabulous essay by that Shaw guy.
Yeah.
Which really captures the essence of the feel. And it's not just about was it girls in summer dresses? That's the title of it?
The story is very depressing. Don't you remember?
I do remember, yeah.
Yeah, it's about his wife is ticked off that he's looking at all the girls in their summer dresses, and that proceeds they're going to divorce court. So it's
yeah, but that's not the essence of what I took away from the piece.
And Bruce Springsteen has that song.
Which one?
About summer dresses. I forget what it's called. Yes, he does. I forget the name of it. Someone will tell us.
Oh, Mary's Dress Waves. Is that what you're talking about?
No. That's from the
like a
9/11
vision she
album.
Dances.
Yeah, that's Thunder Road.
It is. I know what it is.
Yeah.
877-301-8970. John is in Dorchester. You're on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, Jim and Marjorie. How you doing?
Hi. Good.
It's girls in their summer clothes, Jim. Come on.
Oh, is that what it's called?
That's right. The Bruce Springsteen. That's right.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
And Marjorie, I believe it's the chartreuse monster, isn't it? I believe.
Oh, thank you. It's the green monster. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I have been to Fenway Park a couple of times. I just live awfully close to it. I should go there more often.
That's great. Yeah, go ahead.
You should know that. But Jim, you and I have commiserated about this before. I've called before. I am a summer lover like you. The hotter, the better.
Me too.
When I was younger, I loved the winter because I plowed snow. Now I despise it. I don't want to see a snowflake anywhere near me now. So.
And why is that, by the way? I'm not even sure that I believe those who disagree with us. My sense is they're just trying to be ornery. What's your take on this?
Come December, January, February, they're going to be the ones going, when is this winter going to end?
You're so right.
Summer back again, right? So
you're totally right.
They always.
Hey, John, thanks as always. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Robin from Shrewsbury thinks the reason everybody looks out the window looks so miserable is because they've just jumped off a moving subway in order to save their lives. I mean, can you believe after we talked all about the moving the woman that jumped into the Mystic to get out of the burning orange line?
Can you believe she hasn't identified herself?
The green line thing, where there's all these sparks flying and people are running for their lives out of the subway. We are out having Michelle Wu in a few minutes, and we'll ask her if she thinks that the red line and the green line
are next.
Or one of them would be next, because it seems like everything is not all well on the old green line.
But can I tell you something? I know we'll get into this with her. If the orange line ends up on, is it the 19th when the month is up 6 days from now? With as many new cars, I think they said 60, and if all the repairs are done in 30 days that Baker said, Baker will be with us at the end of the month, I think on the 26th, or that would have taken 5 years, then despite the dislocation for a lot of people, students, it probably was worth it.
Well, it makes sense. And, I mean, because all during
if they can do it.
All during the Baker administration, I saw people working on the Cleveland Circle line all the time. And obviously, they didn't get everything done, even though they were there for the better part of 6 or 7 years.
Okay, so you always accuse me of telling the same story over and over again. Why don't you tell your favorite subway story over and over? Because I actually love this story. What's your favorite Green Line story?
When I get mugged?
No, and I'll give you a hint. One of the people about whom you've been talking for years called our show the last time you told the story.
I don't even remember.
The people who decided to run and see if they could get to downtown from BC.
Oh, yeah, the Boston College kids. Yeah, they weren't even great runners. They were like 7 and 8 minute milers, and they decided to run right at Cleveland Circle. They joined the run there. They started the run there, I should say, and they beat the subway to, I think it was to Coolidge Corner. They beat the subway. It might even have been to Kenmore. They beat it. I mean, that is pretty damn depressing. There's nothing that moves more slowly than the Boston College Green Line. It's ridiculous. Why don't they have if I just may say,
you may.
They have the stops like every 2 or 3 blocks. Why don't they have them every 5 or 6 blocks, then things will move a little bit faster.
Beautiful point. Chris and Dennis, you're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent.
I had the opportunity 4 or 5 years ago to spend a winter or a year, as a matter of fact, in Ireland.
Oh.
And the Irish, being so wonderful with words, they didn't complain about it at all. They called the weather soft weather. That meant it rained every day and the temperature never got above freezing. And I guess it was soft, though.
Yeah.
They had a call-in show much like yours. And they focused one day on winter's coming. How do you feel about it? And I was amazed that people called. They couldn't wait for winters to come. They couldn't wait to close the doors, start the fires, cuddle up, get the music out again, and get back to what they really thought was the beauty of Ireland. And I was stunned because I was shivering and ready to go home.
Well, those people are called masochists. Chris, thank you for the call. By the way, I am watching. I'm trying not to comment on it. King Charles, as we call him, is shaking hands with people, I guess, to prove that he is a man of the people. Did I mention yesterday, have you seen the video of him telling his servant with his hand to move the things away from him on the table, things which he could have moved by himself had he chosen to do it?
He's the king, Jim.
He's the man of the people.
He's the king. But I must say, I enjoyed your segment last night talking when you had Tom Nichols on, writes for the Atlantic.
Carol Savitz and Tom Nichols.
Yes, and they both agreed that there was an excessive amount of coverage on the Queen staff.
Versus Ukraine. He actually wrote a piece, he said, I didn't know this, in the Atlantic during the day yesterday. Before we end this segment, here is Robin from Shrewsbury who explains something. Jim, the reason everyone outside our window on Boylston Street looks so miserable is probably because they just jumped off a moving subway in order to save their lives. What is so funny about that?
I think you're losing your marbles.
Why?
I just read that.
Oh, you did? I wasn't listening. Whatever. How'd you do reading it? How was it?
I thought I did a great job.
Okay, let me read Robin from Shrewsbury. Okay, whatever. I'll pay attention better in the future. We got to take a break.
I think the fall season is taking a toll on you.
By the way, are you this Queen thing, which we've taken a lot of criticism for criticizing? Is there any sane person who does not think this is excessive?
Well, I get why in Great Britain they're into it.
No, we're not in Great Britain.
We're not
in the
in Great
United States.
Britain. I don't know. I don't know. It does seem a lot given the brutality of the British Empire, and she was in charge of it. She wasn't technically
Well, I don't think that's
it.
the issue. I don't think it's just a question of fair coverage. I think the issue is excessive coverage, whether it was more fair and balanced than it was. It is round-the-clock coverage of the death of a monarch of a country that is...
Well, we've all heard about CNN changing its
well, that
tone
is what I think it's all about.
Under this new leadership, and maybe that's part of it, that they're deciding to be fewer stories about politics, fewer stories about Donald Trump, and more stories about the king and his queen consort.
Do you know Trump wasn't invited?
Doesn't that sound weird?
Wasn't invited to the funeral?
He wasn't, but none of the other presidents were either.
Well, Biden's going.
Yeah, he was the only one invited.
So?
Well, usually there would be a delegation of presidents, but for some reason they didn't invite anybody. I think they wanted to avoid it. The protocol people avoid this story about Trump.
The Trump issue?
Yes, they just invited Biden. Obama wasn't invited. None of them were invited.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Can I read Robin from Shrewsbury before... Take a break? No, okay, well.
Okay, you know Robin from Shrewsbury.
I do?
Yeah, I think we met Robin from Shrewsbury.
No,
Didn't we meet her at some concert?
I don't think so.
Okay, up next, we're going to talk to Trenny Casey. A lot of things about sports. This great new star in tennis. We're very excited about that.
Did you see him, by the way?
Well, I saw
he's
pictures.
19.
Yes, he's 19 years old, and he's really great. And the most important thing, of course, is to find out where Tom Brady was on his vacation and why he was there instead of out playing football. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Next time on The World, we're in France. Lobbyists for the pork industry there are suing a plant-based meat company. The pork side says the veggie product tastes too much like real bacon. The veggie bacon people replied,
"Thank you so much for the compliment. We actually think that your product tastes a bit too close from our products."
And now the fight is getting political. A battle over bacon on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Advocates. The human services provider is now hiring for a range of positions, including direct care professionals, nurses, and clinicians. Employee benefits and professional development are available. You can apply at advocates.org. And Hebrew Senior Life, a Harvard Medical School affiliate, empowering seniors to reach their full potential through senior living, healthcare, aging research, and more. You can consider Hebrew Senior Life at allweareforyou.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The mayor will join us in exactly 30 minutes for an hour of Ask the Mayor. But first, we're joined by NBC Sports anchor, reporter Trenny Casey. Trenny's also a BPR contributor. Hey there, Trenny.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
So
it's warm in here today.
It is
really warm.
I think it's the humidity thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that it, do you think? Anyway, we have been talking forever about whether the Patriots had their great streak because of Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, or a combination thereof. Now people seem to be leaning a little bit toward Tom Brady as the guy to be thanked for all that.
I have been poo-pooing Jim for 2 years. When he says, I don't know, I think it was Tom Brady. And I'd say, I don't know, Jim. Let's just slow our roll here. Let's wait and see what happens. But the evidence is mounting that the large majority of the Patriots' success is all tied back to Tom Brady. I mean, since he has left, I had this in my monologue yesterday in my show, that my trust in Bill Belichick is eroding as quickly as the ice in the glaciers in Greenland.
Greenland, well, yeah.
Because first, he had no succession plan for Tom Brady. He hasn't named an offensive coordinator. And in doing so, he just named his two cronies, his two buddies, two fired head coaches in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to run an offense. But then rather than just having them co-run an offense, he also has Matt Patricia coaching the offensive line and then Joe Judge coaching the quarterbacks. He's mad at Kendrick. All of these things are happening, and it's like he's reeling without his binky. And before when he made...
his binky.
When Tom Brady was his binky. Before when he made roster decisions that were questionable.
Could be a lot of people's binky.
I know.
think.
Maybe didn't put
You'd like him to be
receivers
your
around
binky.
him.
I know what you're talking about.
I mean, we didn't see him in those swim
Go ahead.
trunks. When you didn't put a perfect offensive line in front of Tom Brady, or you didn't maybe have top-notch receivers, Brady always made everyone around him better. But I don't know if he would have been able to do that when he was Mac Jones's age in the early 2000s. Those teams were built also mostly by Bill Parcells, with defense and through the draft and solid veterans around Tom Brady. And now Mac Jones, it's like, here, kid, here's the keys to the car. Do whatever you can with it. And it was a disaster on Sunday.
So is your point you want to apologize to me? Is that
yes,
the point?
Jim.
Apology accepted. Here's Belichick at a press conference yesterday discussing the Patriots' crushing loss, by the way, on the same day. Tom Brady, age 45, won his game. Here is he sounding a little less than enthusiastic. Belichick.
We gave up. Obviously, have to do a much better job on that. Coaching, execution, everything. Just, we can't. We've got to eliminate those. Just in general, playing better better all-around football.
Can you imagine? You know, occasionally we have a bad show. Okay, we do a bad show. We come in the next day. Here's me, Marjorie. Marjorie, we gave up. We got to do better. We got to do better on monologues. We got to do better on our interviews. We got to do better. Let me just tell you this thing. Brady, by the way, I'm not just trying to luxuriate in the fact that you're acknowledging I might have been right. It is so obvious to me that Belichick has had great moments, and there's no question, and obviously he did spectacularly well with Brady, which means he doesn't mean he's not a great coach. He is a great coach. It's clear that if he doesn't have a superstar like the greatest player of all time, he's a mere mortal. End of discussion. It's obvious.
I mean, listen, again, it is only one game. Things could drastically turn around, and we could be, you could be apologizing to me and saying Triniana was wrong at the end of the year when maybe, but I think you're right. Like, I just, it feels to me like, and I don't want to say Bill Belichick's a bad coach. He's obviously innovative, and Tom Brady was somebody that like nobody else identified it as even worth investing in, and he did that.
Sixth round pick,
199th overall. Everybody knows the story. But still, at the end of the day, what frustrates, or what should frustrate Patriots fans, is that Belichick assumed that he was as good as everyone said he is as a head coach, and he didn't really think about life after Brady, and now he's scrambling to make up for that.
Well,
and that, to me, is professional negligence.
I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but I'll say one more thing about this. Did you watch the game, or did you not watch the game?
I did not watch the game.
Okay.
Well, it was not very beautiful. So
what was their best play of the whole game?
Best play
I'll tell you what it was. A 40-yard pass, brilliant pass.
Oh, yeah, to Kendrick Bourne.
To a guy who Belichick kept out of the lineup until the end of the fourth quarter when the game was lost.
I've been saying
what was
for a
that?
week,
Just petulance?
I've been saying for a week it's Malcolm Butler 2.0.
It is, exactly.
Right. To me, and so the rumor is that the reason Kendrick Bourne hasn't been playing a lot is because he has been critical of the new system that Bill Belichick is implementing, the offensive system, which is the Shanahan system, which of course is Mike Shanahan, who is the father of Kyle Shanahan, who's the head coach in San Francisco, which is where Kendrick Bourne played before playing in New England. So you would think, guys, that actually Kendrick Bourne would be the perfect player for this new system because he already played in it in San Francisco, and they're trying to emulate it here in Boston. And instead, Bill Belichick is just angry and acting like a child and saying, you're not going to question my decision. So you, the best receiver on the team last year, you just won't play. You'll sit and you'll go out there for one. And it seems like people are mad about it.
What did he say?
He says, Emperor Belichick has no clothes.
Wow.
Oh.
So he'll probably enjoy summer more than winter.
It's surprising to me that people are starting. I don't want to say people are turning on Belichick, but there's certainly more discontent early and questioning of him than I've seen in my tenure.
Okay, so we never do this with a guest, but we're going to do it for you because you're special, Trenny. We're going to give you two choices.
Oh.
You can either talk about Tom Brady's brilliant defeat of the Dallas Cowboys, or you can talk about the state of his marriage.
Which is what I want to talk about.
Exactly. We know that, Marjorie. Yes.
Okay, Marjorie.
I love this story. I
feel like we never cater these segments to Marjorie. So
that's right. Well, it turns out, where was Tom Brady during his mystery departure? I guess Giselle said, "Get your butt down here to the Bahamas. You promised us for the first time in 20 years you were going to have an August vacation. You better get down here." I love the fact that this woman seems to wear the pants in this family. Does she not?
Well, I think she's fed up. Like when he said that he had to take a leave of personal absence, and people tried to spin it like he was going to be on The Masked Singer. I was like, no, his wife is ticked at him, and if he wants any chance at saving his marriage, and it should be noted, she was not at that game on Sunday night. She did, I guess, post something on Instagram, like in her wedding dress, and wished him best of luck and all these things, and they seem to be sort of on speaking terms again, but it sounds like things have gotten a little rocky in paradise.
Well, I mean, can't you see her point? They've got three children, including the one with Bridget Moynihan. They got 3 kids, and she's thinking to herself, one tough hit, and this guy is done.
I mean, I don't even know if she's thinking that. I think she's thinking, I'm tired of I left my modeling career, which, by the way, was more lucrative than his football and his endorsements. I walked away to support you, and you promised me that you would walk away, and now we would do this together. And now I'm the one who okay, she's probably not alone schlepping the kids to and from school. Like, there's probably like 16 nannies that do it.
Sure she has some
but not
help.
exactly like hurting for help. But at the same time, like, I don't think they're they're absentee parents. They seem like they're pretty involved with their kids. So like it's all falling on her. Like if you're Giselle, listen, we don't have kids, but I would be ticked off. Like there should be a division of labor inside of a marriage, and it seems like it's all about Mr. Tom Brady eating his kale smoothies and dining on his avocado ice cream. When she's like, "Man, can't we just go chill on the beach?" And like, "Can't you schlep these kids to soccer practice?" Like I'm tired of the one doing the whiteboard schedule. You do the whiteboard schedule.
It's the happiest I've seen you in weeks.
Well,
Marjorie.
I just love it. And he went. He did. He took 11 days off, and now he's back.
And then he seemed miserable when he came back.
Well, aren't there reports also? Was it in the New York Post somewhere yesterday?
The New York Post was all over it.
No, not just the relationship, but that he is clearly retiring for real.
Yes,
at the end of this year.
He didn't say it. He did not say it plainly, but Ian Rappaport, who is a pretty well-connected NFL reporter, writes for NFL media, so like NFL.com, NFL Network, that kind of stuff. He did report that people close to Tom Brady have said this is, in fact, his last season playing football. Okay. So Brady has not come out and said it, but when he came back from the Bahamas and held a press conference, he was, just saying, like, listen, I'm 45. There's a lot going on. I have a lot more responsibilities. There are things I need to take care of at home.
I got a lot of expletive deleted going on.
Yes, I got a lot of bleep going on.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, you do. So that is the rumor, is that this actually will be it for Thomas Edward Patrick Brady III. Also, he's got that $100 million 10-year contract waiting for him at Fox Sports.
$375
million. Oh, is it $375 million?
$37 million a year
that would be
to sit in the booth.
I thought it was $10 million. Oh,
no, I'm pretty sure it's $37
No,
million.
you're probably right.
You know what I love? What I love about her? I remember when they first got married, there was a big profile of her. I think it was in the New York Times, massive profile of her, and how people told her, which seems incredible because she looks like perfect to me, but how she was never going to have a modeling career because she was too horsey, she was too tall, she was too this, she was too that, and they talked about how she just worked like a dog. She would go out and wear the mink coats for like 6 weeks in the middle of summer because she wanted to get the assignment.
Learn how to wear it and walk.
Well, she just really worked hard, and she's very smart and
she's very business savvy.
Very business savvy. So I love the fact that she told
Still
him,
one of the highlights of my time in Boston. I had only lived here a couple of months, and I went for a morning, Saturday run on the Charles. And she must have been pregnant with Vivian at the time, because I think it was her second, and Vivian, I think, is their youngest, their little girl.
Yeah.
And she was walking with some woman. She was real pregnant, and she was pushing a stroller. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I came from Wisconsin. You don't ever see celebrities in Wisconsin, unless it's
a common friend of ours, who shall remain unnamed, used to purposely go, what's that? In Chestnut Hill,
Soul Cycle.
Soul Cycle,
to see
because
her.
She knew when Bunchen would go.
I just saw her walking, pushing, and I was like, I stared at her, but I didn't even know who she was at first, but she was so striking and stunning, and I was like,
oh my God, she's unbelievable.
I was like, yeah, you are beautiful.
Yeah, and about 6 feet tall.
Sure,
but a guy that used to work at the Herald with me used to kind of have this long lens and just go hang around down on, I think they lived on Marlborough Street when they were here.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, Marlborough Street, and with his long lens, hoping to catch a glimpse of them, and he did. He got a picture of the two of them, which financed his entire honeymoon.
No.
Absolutely. He sold it to a million
Mark,
people.
what's his face, right?
Well, I could say it.
Of course it is.
Mark Garfinkel.
Yeah, of course it is.
Great photographer.
Yeah,
great photographer.
One last thing about
takes great
Bunchen.
shots of airplanes and the moons.
Okay, fine.
He's got a whole photo gallery. You can go online.
Okay.
Mark Garfinkel. He's a great photographer.
I think he actually works for NBC 10 now.
Yeah, I know he went to TV.
Yeah, I think he does too.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last thing.
One last thing about her.
We've already destroyed our reputation by talking about Bunchen for 10 minutes. Do you remember at the Rio Olympics in 2016, at the opening ceremony, Giselle Bunchen starts walking across
her last
the
catwalk,
field, and everybody watching wonders when she's going to do something, and she never did anything.
She just walked.
Except walked across the field, and that was the end of the whole deal.
Because she's a model. She walked the catwalk.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. What do you want her to stand on her head and
That's a very
spin
good point.
plates or something?
We're not getting a lot of sympathy for Giselle from the texters.
They're all Brady fans?
Yeah. I had a text about sympathy for Giselle. I have none. How many moms have sacrificed for their husband's career? They have more money than they'll ever need. Get over it, Giselle.
Wow. Okay, so can we
As
move
my
to
therapist
baseball?
always says, everyone's own problems are their own problems.
That
you
is
can't
correct.
compare yours to others.
That's right. That's
Next
where
week
we're
we'll have your
all
therapist on
entitled
instead.
to be sad and melancholy at the end of summer.
Now, you both know, I think, that when people say to me, Jim, what was the worst interview you ever did? I say without missing a beat, it was Theo Epstein, who was
yes,
the rudest
that's
little,
right.
I don't think I knew that.
rudest little
Yes.
punk I've ever encountered in my life.
Theo didn't know who Jim
Having
was.
said that, wasn't it? Maybe
Don't you know who
maybe
I
it
am?
was it. Having said that, I got to give him credit. He's the guy behind these long overdue changes in Major League Baseball. I know the purists are all up in arms and the players don't like it. It's going to shorten.
Players, not all players.
I
don't
love
like
baseball. I love going to Fenway. I was just there last week. These games are so long.
Ugh.
They are interminable. And in the minor leagues, I didn't even know this till this morning. No more shifts, meaning changing of defense, which makes it harder to get a hit. I'm not going to give people a headache. And much more importantly, a pitch clock, so pitchers can't screw around forever, X number of seconds, and they have to throw the ball.
Yeah, you have to throw the ball
In the
15
minor leagues,
seconds
it is
with
proven to
nobody.
shorten the games, right? Isn't that
Yes.
true?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Would you say 15 seconds?
So you have 15 seconds to throw the baseball.
That's a long
if there's
time.
no one, it's actually not. Some guys take up all close to a minute. Some
It's
guys
ridiculous.
will walk around the back, they'll grab the rosin bag, they'll go
ridiculous.
like this, they adjust their you-know-whats, and then they move, and then they go, and then they sigh, and then they sigh again, and then they step, and then they look, and then they back. I mean, it's unbelievable. So now you have 15 seconds if no one's on base, 20 seconds if there's a runner on base, and if you do not throw the ball within those 15 or 20 seconds, depending on the scenario, the hitter will get a ball. And this is where some of the pitchers are upset about it. They're like, what if it's like game 7 of the World Series? But by that point, I think you'll be in a rhythm and you'll understand and
I
you'll
agree
know
with
it.
you,
Like
totally.
baseball players just hate change. They just don't like anything. But it's going to make, like, who wants to be at the ballpark for 4 hours?
Nobody. Why are baseball players the ones that are always adjusting the you-know-whats? You don't see basketball players doing
In their
that.
crotch, you're talking
Yes.
about.
Well, because I think most of them do wear cups.
'Cause
So
look
I
at-
mean, I don't have that equipment, so I don't know. But I can imagine it's got to be kind of weird.
Do basketball players wear cups?
I don't think so, because I don't think they get hit there very. And it would be hard. They're running so much, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know football. I don't know, Marjorie. I'm a girl. I don't know. I got girl parts.
I think you need to get to the bottom of this.
I will.
Find out the cup issue.
Well, I'm sort of a guy,
today.
and I don't know either. But they are adjusting. But, by the way, it's not just pitchers. I heard on the radio the other night after
you got to
this
do
thing
something with the
passed,
batters, too. With
what's
the
the
batters
name?
stepping out of the box.
What's his face? Bogarts, who's leading the league in hitting, and hopefully will still be a Red Sox, may not be in the future. They say he takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 seconds in between pitches, fidgeting around and doing a no-mark kind of experience kind of
it's
thing.
obnoxious.
Yeah,
Just
but it's going to shorten
get
the
in the
game.
box,
Games are too long.
throw
It'll be
the
much
ball.
better. I'm with
And you know what? If the pitcher's ready to go, I think by extension it's going to make the batter
I agree with you.
stay in the box and work more quickly.
And then, by the way, before we leave, this is happening next year. This is not one of these.
Yeah, this is
postponed-
happening in
Great.
2023
Fabulous.
season. They're also making the bases slightly bigger, which they're hoping will cut down on some of those catastrophic injuries where, like, you slide into a base and you take out a guy's ankles. But more importantly, they're hoping maybe there'll be more steals. And it's just going
that'd
to
be
add,
great.
hopefully, some more runs and a little
That's
more
great.
action in baseball.
By the way, the reason, I don't know if I was clear, the reason I mentioned Theo Epstein is after being the head of the Sox to a World Series in Chicago, the Cubs to a
Cubs,
World
yep.
Series after 400 years. He's on the competition
Competition
committee or
committee, yeah, he's
whatever
like the head of the
and made
competition
some of these
committee.
recommendations.
So let's talk. We were all talking about Serena Williams' her farewell at the U.S. Open, but let's talk about this 19-year-old
God.
kid, Carlos.
I think it's Alcaraz.
Alcaraz,
right?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure, but he is
blasts
spectacular.
unbelievable.
A serve came off his racket like a missile.
He's unbelievable. And they've been talking about him since he was probably 16 or 17 years old. Like, you've started to hear his name uttered in, like, tennis circles. He's a Spaniard. Many think that he is sort of built in the mode of a Rafael Nadal. This year alone, he's beaten Nadal, not on a major, but in smaller tournaments leading up to majors. He's beaten Nadal and Djokovic. He is now the world number 1. He beat Casper Ruud, who is from, I think, Norway. He's a Norwegian tennis player, but he beat him in the U.S. Open final. It's just been like this very steady ascension, and he's only 19 years old. And for a sport that for a long time, I think we've wondered who is going to replace Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal, who are still, by all accounts, the best players in tennis, but are getting older and more oft injured. This is a kid to keep an eye on, along with some German and Russian players.
You like I was watching it with no sound because I'm at the same time. Well, this is odd. I'm watching Ken Burns' The Holocaust at the same time. That I know it's horrible.
Wait, what?
I was sitting on my couch, And we had Ken Burns and Lynn Novick on yesterday about their documentary. It's going to air for the first time. It is incredible.
It's about how we Americans disgraced ourselves by not doing more.
In epic ways. I mean, in epic ways. Far worse.
When does it I did not even know about this.
3 nights starting September 18th. So I'm watching the thing, and I'm obviously listening to it, and I have the tennis on without sound in the background. But having said, I never even heard of this kid till a couple of weeks ago. He is just spectacular and beautiful to watch.
He looks like, and we should the wingspan, like a Michael Phelps.
He's beautiful. He's
we also
beautiful
shouldn't
player.
forget, she doesn't have quite the fiery serve or even the fiery personality, but Iga Swiatek
She's a women's champion,
is the
right?
women's champion. She's only 21 years old.
I didn't know that.
She has now won, I believe, the French Open twice, the Australian, and now the U.S. Open. She is closing in as being one of the youngest players to win the most majors on Naomi Osaka.
Wow.
And she's not as outspoken as Osaka. She certainly hasn't marketed herself in the same way. But maybe that's for the best,
No,
right?
wait a second. There's one exception to that rule. She's the only non-Ukrainian tennis player who is still wearing a Ukrainian flag or symbol on her uniform. Good for her.
But very quiet about it.
Yes,
but very respectful.
That's
but
a beautiful
she's
thing.
a Polish tennis player, and she is also on the rise.
How do you say her last name one more time?
I think it's Swiatek.
Swiatek.
Let me ask you a question I should know the answer to, but I don't.
Is Giselle Bundchen coming to town anytime soon?
Oh, no. Wasn't that.
You know what? I'll text her after the show, and I'll get back to you guys.
Yeah. Tennis is an international. People are from everywhere, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Do you want to take that question back?
If anything,
you got Poland, you got Spain,
well, if anything,
you've got
Marjorie,
France, you've got
I would say
Serbia.
your best tennis players right now. There was a time when Americans, I would say when the 80s and 90s sort of dominated the sport on both sides, and obviously the Williams sisters dominated tennis through the 2000s. But now. With the exception of Coco Gauff and Frances Tiafoe, there's not a lot of young American tennis players that people are paying attention to. But both did okay. They both made the quarters in the U.S. Open.
Well, I'm telling you, you have to watch. You
Tiafoe.
like beautiful players. I don't mean just physically, but beautiful movement.
I'll watch him.
Video of this kid winning U.S. Open. He is just
He had like the shot of he had like, I think it was like a between the legs. He played Tiafoe in an epic 5-set semifinal match to go to the U.S. Open finals. And he had like an unbelievable, like crazy, like in between his legs shot.
Well, he's got very long legs and very long arms.
Good athlete.
Good athlete. Okay.
Shocking.
We've been speaking with NBC Sports Boston anchor and reporter Trendy Kuznarek. She's also a BPR contributor. Coming up after the news, we're going to talk to Michelle Wu, the mayor of the city of Boston. She's going to be with us for an hour, taking our questions and yours from the studio at the Boston Public Library, where we broadcast from every Tuesday and every Friday. Ask the Mayor with Michelle Wu is up next. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Compass on the Bay, an assisted living community in South Boston dedicated to those with Alzheimer's and related dementias, featuring research-based therapeutic programming. More at compassonthebay.com/reconnect. In a world where lions and humans are increasingly at odds, the famed marsh pride battles for survival in Kenya's Masai Mara Reserve. Watch Lion, the rise and fall of the marsh pride, Wednesday at 9 on GBH2.
I'm Matt Baskin, assignment editor for GBH News, and you're listening to 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio, we're live at the Boston Public Library today for Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. We'll get her thoughts on how the city's navigating the ongoing Orange Line shutdown, her plans for revamping how we get around in Boston, and losses for some high-profile Wu-back candidates in last week's midterms. You can ask her a question too by text, by call, or just come on down to the Boston Public Library.
Filmmaker Michael Kirk's new documentary kicks off its latest season at PBS Frontline. The project's called Lies, Politics, and Democracy, all about how GOP leaders who thought they could manipulate Donald Trump instead were totally manipulated by Trump. We'll follow it up with national analysis from Dorchester's own John King of CNN. All that ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Amy Held. The personal data of hundreds of millions of Twitter users is vulnerable to hackers, even foreign spies. That's the word from Twitter's former security chief. NPR's Raquel Maria Dillon has more on the whistleblower testimony underway on Capitol Hill now.
Peter Mudge Zatko says Twitter's grip on its security is so weak that it even hired government agents from China and India for roles that give them access to sensitive user information. He accuses company leaders of lacking the will to acknowledge and fix the problems.
Upton Sinclair famously said, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." This mentality is exactly what I saw at the executive level at Twitter.
The Senate committee said Twitter's CEO rejected their request to testify, saying it could jeopardize a legal battle with Tesla CEO Elon Musk. I'm Raquel Maria Dillon, NPR News.
Today's Consumer Price Index report shows inflation slowed slightly last month. President Biden calls that progress. Still, prices are up more than 8% from the year before. And Mark Zandi, chief economist for Moody's Analytics, says the data is disappointing for American consumers and for the Fed, which will need to keep up aggressive action.
Today's report suggests that the rate hikes they put in place aren't enough and more rate hikes are coming. That raises concerns about future recession because the more they need to raise rates, step on the brakes, the more likely the economy is going to seize up and go into an economic downturn.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was down 878 points. The Biden administration is racing to prevent a national freight rail strike, pressuring both sides to come to terms. Unions representing freight rail workers are in a cooling-off period with the industry that ends on Friday. Without a deal, analysts warn a national work stoppage could cause billions in economic damage with major supply chain disruptions. Amtrak has already canceled several long-distance trips. The passenger rail line shares freight rail tracks. Ukrainian forces are quickly liberating towns in the east and more slowly in the south. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf has more from Lviv.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said troops have now retaken more than 2,300 square miles of land from Russian control since the beginning of September. While those numbers are difficult to independently verify, Russia has admitted to losing key cities in the northeastern Kharkiv region. The Ukrainian armed forces have posted videos online claiming to be repurposing Russian tanks left behind on the front line. The fight is moving slower in the south, but there are reports that Ukraine has recently gained back a relatively major town near the city of Kherson and continues to press forward. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Lviv, Ukraine.
The Dow is down 867 points. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline today. Local activists fighting the release of radioactive water from the Pilgrim nuclear power station say a nuclear plant in New Jersey is already releasing radioactive water, and a concern that Pilgrim could be next. Nuclear Regulatory Commission spokesman Neil Sheehan confirms that the Oyster Creek plant in New Jersey is releasing water with low-level radioactive contamination.
As long as that water is treated, filtered, tested, they can do releases to a local waterway. It just has to be within NRC and EPA limits.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says Pilgrim cannot release water from the spent fuel pool unless that water is free from pollutants regulated by the Clean Water Act. But the EPA does not regulate radioactivity in water. The NRC does. Decommissioning company Holtec owns both of those buildings. They own Oyster Creek and they own Pilgrim. If you're one of the people who filled out an application for the low-number license plate lottery in Massachusetts, well, today is the day the Registry of Motor Vehicle picks the winners. By the end of today, 196 people will be awarded a low-number license plate with letters and numbers like F736, X44, 6666. The results will be posted on the registry's website. And the Red Sox and Yankees at it tonight at Fenway. First pitch 7:10. We're looking at some light rain in Boston right now, 71 degrees. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Subaru, featuring the 2023 Subaru Outback Wilderness. With standard symmetrical all-wheel drive and all-terrain tires, it's designed for paths not yet taken. Learn more at Subaru.com/wilderness.
It's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday and every Friday. And we are streaming. Jim, I don't have it in front of me.
I will tell you.
Thank you.
No, actually I won't. Let's see if you can come up with it. What are we streaming on?
We're streaming on YouTube.
And what's the place to go?
I think it's .com/GBH News.
Very nicely done. And by the way, even though Marjorie says we're here every Tuesday and Friday, this particular Friday we will not be here, but after that we return next Tuesday. The mayor is in the building. She's doing an event within the library somewhere. She'll be with us in a matter of minutes. Everybody's pointing in that direction. I assume does that mean she's coming? That does mean she's coming. She's just a couple of seconds away. We're obviously going to talk about what's going on with the tea. How many days till the end of the Orange Line fix?
The 19th.
6 days till that.
It's
we also
two-thirds of the way there.
Learned just a couple of minutes ago, pretty significant. Mayor Wu has decided to challenge the 2020 U.S. Census. She'll explain to us what she's doing and why it matters. I'm not sure a lot of people really understand what the significance of that is. There is a crowd of people moving, and at the front of that crowd is luckily a woman with a pink box, which means she's doubly welcome here at Boston Public Radio. Who would that woman be?
We
that
are
would be
falling down on the job. That would be Mayor Wu. She's just arrived with a pink box. We were supposed to get some pastries for the mayor, and we fell down on the job. It's Jim's fault. He was supposed to do it, Mr. Mayor.
Wait, is that applause for the pastries or for the mayor? That's for the fine. Right, Mayor Wu, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you. So I feel I'm just going to treat this as my kind of, the kids are back to school now. One of the things that they have to do, they've come home with what they call a me bag at school, and they have to put a couple things in there, and it's basically a show and tell that they bring back. So I'm just going to treat this as my small business show and tell every month.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much.
These are mochi donuts.
Oof.
Have you heard of those yet?
No.
Yes.
No.
Go ahead. Tell Marjorie.
So they are. I don't know if you can see it. They're at this special shape.
Oh my God! Look at those. Those are beautiful.
They are made with flour that is the kind of sweet rice flour of mochis. I don't know.
Okay.
Watch your hand on Marjorie first. Yes.
And so they have a little extra chew in it. I pretend they're healthier. I don't know.
Well, they're beautiful. That's for
okay,
sure.
I'm going to try a little bite. They're warm. They're warm, Jim.
So, Mayor Wu, welcome, by the way.
You know something? I always just called you mistakenly, of course, because you're not Mr. Mayor. But
you call her Mr. Mayor?
By mistake. What is it? Is it Ms. Mayor? Is it Mrs. Mayor? Or do we just do plain old Mayor?
Some people say Madam, but it sounds very fancy and formal. I don't know.
In any case,
oh my God,
Mayor Wu, can we get started with the show here? Do you mind, Marjorie? Fine, thank you. The phone number, if you'd like to speak to Mr. Mayor, or whoever Marjorie described her as, 877-301-8970. You can text her there, too. And our colleague, Zoe. Zoe, can you raise your hand? Our colleague Zoe is by the mic in the library. If you'd like to ask a question directly face-to-face to the mayor, you got to get through Zoe to make that happen.
Pass these to Jim just so you can try one.
Thank you, Mayor.
They are really, really good.
Before we get started with the news...
I consider myself a donut aficionado.
Before we get started with the news of the day, I'm told you were actually here in the library for the reopening of the special collection. What's the deal with that?
Exciting day here. I get to spend almost all day here. I have various meetings. We had our cabinet meeting hosted earlier here today as we're going around the city. And today marks the completion of a 7-year renovation project for the Boston Public Library Special Collections Department and Wing. We have some of the foremost gems of our country's intellectual history right here in this building. And if you go in the back, there's now wide open windows where you can see where they preserve it. There's like a hood. There's little rinsing stations. It's like a science lab in parts of it. Temperature-controlled vault in another part of it. It's really incredible the work that happens here.
By the way, the reason I'm smiling at you like this, Marjorie and I, when we first started broadcasting in the library, David Leonard, who runs the library, and others were kind enough to give us a comparable tour. And it's like you feel like a kid, don't you?
Yeah.
It is so impressive, not just what they have here, but the skill of the people who work here to do this preservation. So it's great. So if you have a question for the mayor or a comment for the mayor, she's with us for the full hour at 877-301-8970.
Well, a couple of breaking news story here that you are challenging the census of the city of Boston. What's all that about?
The census is the count that happens once every 10 years and then determines your official population numbers that decide everything from your electoral representation to the funding that is given out by various federal agencies. And so because the count happened overlapping with the pandemic, and Boston was a city that was very much affected by that, right? College students home versus here, multilingual communities, deeply impacted immigrant communities, so many of our residents disproportionately impacted. We believe that there needs to be some adjustments and that our numbers are actually higher in certain cases, and so we are submitting that official request to be reconsidered.
I should know this. Whoops, excuse me. I was eating a donut, so I moved my
Close
mic.
the cover,
and by the way,
please, or they'll get stale.
They are spectacular, and they're warm, by the way. They're incredibly warm.
If you close the cover, they'll stay warm.
Okay, fine. I will do that in a minute, Marjorie.
Thank you.
What's the likelihood of success? I should know this, because I know there are a lot of leaders in different cities who feel they're undercounts for different reasons. How often does one prevail in these kind of things?
To be honest, I don't know. We are in a new administration than the one that was overseeing some of the early parts of that census count anyway. And so I think there are a lot of factors, but no matter what, we want to be clear about what Boston sees as the full count so that each of our residents would actually receive the resources they deserve.
So, Mayor Wu, before we get to the calls and the texts and people here who want to ask you a question.
Thank you, Mayor Wu.
She's closing the box.
I asked Jim twice, and the mayor is closing the box.
You have...
to keep the donuts warm and not stale.
Were, I think, fairly courageous, but put yourself at some risk by agreeing with the governor's decision early on that the best way to deal with this Orange Line nightmare was to shut it down for a month. We are now 6 days away from that month being completed. We read reports and hear reports that from the people at the T that things are on time. We're going to have 60 new cars, and that the work is going to be done. You obviously are much more clued in than the average soul, to say the least. Are you as optimistic as the T is broadcasting?
So first I'll say that the shuttle bus and all the alternatives, the diversions, have been going so well, relatively speaking. I took a shuttle bus this morning, and even with school buses back on the road and everyone kind of more firmly settled in your fall commuting habits and coming back in person, it went pretty well, right? Definitely more traffic than when I first took it at the beginning, but just about everything possible that could be done has been done. We've seen records broken in terms of blue bike usage of our bike share system. So we've learned a lot from this process that we'll be able to apply forward. In terms of what the Orange Line experience will be when we come back, one, I do believe that even the reopening at the date that it was promised is a great thing and will happen. But we should just set expectations as well about what the experience will be when folks return. There are multiple challenges that the MBTA has been facing. The FTA, the federal agency, analyzed many of these in their recent report. Some of it is infrastructure, right? Needing to rip up all the old tracks that haven't been touched since the 1980s, rusted down, incredibly painstaking work to do that. Updating the signals, bringing on new train cars, that will be immediately visible. Some lighting in stations that's been updated. So everything they've been able to do with economies of scale and efficiently, because they haven't had to close it down, reopen it, test things to reopen every week, they've been able to get great work done. One big key that has not been resolved and will take time to resolve is staffing levels, right? Whether it's the Boston Public Schools or companies across our city, small businesses, we see the impact of needing to fill roles. And when the T is so short on positions like signal dispatchers and others that control the trains, it will still take some time to build that workforce back to be able to run at full strength.
Which means the reduced schedule that happened before this is going to continue even after the improvements.
Incredibly frustrating on that piece, but we have to do this reopening safely.
I read in the Globe a piece that talked about how the T hires people part-time initially for quite a number of days and weeks, which is a huge disincentive. They had a contrast between, was it Lowell or Lawrence with the buses? I think
Lawrence.
it was Lawrence with the buses, how they were able to hire people there. And I thought, really? You're going to work part-time? And how are you going to pay your bills while you're working part-time, trying to get this full? Is that something that, well, what is your input? I know there's been a discussion about who should be talking about who should be running things at the T, whether you should be included in that group of people. Where is that? And what do you think about that? This seems crazy.
Yeah, with all the talk of the federal agency coming in, should there be a takeover, should there be receivership, I actually think it always can benefit from going the other direction of make sure those who use the system every day have the greatest voice in decision making. The city of Boston and all municipalities covered by the T's footprint haven't had a direct, even a single vote on the budget of the T for the last 8 years or so, before they kind of indirectly did. And we are very close to Boston being able to have a seat on the MBTA board. It has been passed by the House and Senate at the state level, signed by the governor with some amendments. The House adopted the amendments. We are just waiting for the Senate to adopt those amendments as well, and that would go a long way to having more direct say. But ultimately, like any organization, the focus has to be not only on the product you're delivering, and in this case, the public good and service you're delivering, but the people behind that. The employees and the workforce matter so much, and if there's anything we've learned in the pandemic, we have to take care of people better, and we have to make sure that that is as central to an organization's mission as their outputs.
One last topic relating to the T, and then we'll get directly to the phone calls at 877-301-8970. We're joined by Mayor Wu until 1 o'clock for a monthly Ask the Mayor. When the governor was with us last, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, we said there are a lot of rumors that as soon as the orange line is done and reopened, the red or the green are next. And I think to his credit, he didn't deny it. He basically said something like one line or one step at a time. Again, based upon what your discussions with T people, and I assume the governor and the governor's office are like, do you anticipate something like that happening once the orange line is done?
I don't think that there will be anything of the same scale of an entire line being shut down. And again, I don't have a seat, the city of Boston doesn't have a seat on the board. We're not privy to the deepest of conversations. But from all that I understand about the actual state of the infrastructure, the orange line by far had been in need of the greatest scope of repairs to begin with. The red line is next in that list of kind of what is in greatest need of repair, but it's not as substantial and it's not the entire line.
Okay, let's take some calls. 877-301-8970.
Ron is calling from a secret location inside the Boston Public Library, or is he right in front of us? Oh, there he is, right in the front row. Hi, Ron.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
Good. First of all, I want to compliment...
Hey, Ron, this is not working. Why don't you go to the mic right over there? Ron is walking a grand total of about 8 feet to the mic. He was using his phone. Ron is now at the mic. Hi, Ron. You have the mayor. Shoot.
Thank you. Hi. Haven't seen you in a while. First of all, I want to compliment you on what you've accomplished. And I think the T is a sad story. It's not what I want to talk about, but I want to mention one quick thing. 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and a month ago, I called and I sent a little text to them about the fact that the stairs at the UMass JFK station to Sydney Street have been closed, and nobody gets back to me. And it's been 3 months, and the stairs have been locked for 3 months. So that's a personal issue. But what I wanted to ask you about is what you have thought about with the library people about a temporary location for the South End branch, because the South End branch being closed for a year is a terrible loss to the community, to the children who lost an entire summer of reading clubs and all of that, but also for the people that use the computers. I've never been in the South End branch when all the computers are not being used, and those are being used by people that don't have computers at home. So that's a concern, okay?
Ron, thank you. Let's hear what the mayor has to say.
Thank you, Ron. I took some notes, so we will follow up directly with the MBTA on the UMass stairs and see if we can at least get you an answer on that. And then in terms of the library, I mean, it's just an important reminder that libraries are about so much more than books, which you could technically walk to the Copley branch not too far away from the Southland location to pick up, or a different one. They are community hubs and spaces and places for services. So the flooding that happened at the library was much more impactful, unfortunately, when we really looked into it than we had initially realized, and so it will be out for longer for those repairs. Our library team is the best at ensuring the facilities plans are moving quickly and smoothly. So as we get those estimates, I'll make sure that the South End community is part of the conversations. But unfortunately, we're not in a great spot because of the flooding that happened.
Ron, thank you. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. During this shutdown of the Orange Line, you've announced miles and miles of more bike lanes to be built in the city. On the bike lane front, one of the things I was wondering the other day is how does the city plow snow in a bike lane?
So there are vehicles of all different sizes that can
So there's a smaller
plow
one that
snow.
just fits in the...
There are many cities, and Montreal is always held up as the premier example of a winter city that really leans into being able to have activities all throughout the year, and there are many, many videos of how they do it. But there are bobcats that can plow the sidewalks, that can plow bike lanes, and so the city is even, one question that we're looking into is whether electric plows, vehicles, street sweepers, how well they hold up in the winter. But other than that, it's just a matter of having the right equipment and machinery.
Before, if we just can, if you didn't read the story, tell us about tell us about the bike lane
lanes.
announcement.
When and where and what?
So we announced a little over 9 miles of new bike lanes to be completed in the next year or so.
What do we have now, just by comparison, roughly?
I don't know the number. I'll try it. Let's see if I can get it.
Okay.
I'm winking at Emma, so she'll use the magic of our text messages to get that context. And I'll just start off by saying that in some ways these numbers are fairly arbitrary, right? You can count something as, quote unquote, a bike lane if it's a line on a road, even if it doesn't feel fully safe to ride there because there are cars zooming by you without great protection. Or there are kind of examples of our newer bike lanes that are separated completely from vehicular traffic, either by a median or parked cars in the middle, and that's a completely different mental and physical experience of riding. So we are aiming for, however many miles that currently exist of bike lanes of all types, more than 9 miles in the immediate stretch of protected, safe, low-stress cycling lanes, and in the places that will connect our infrastructure to each other, right? Often if you have a quarter-mile stretch or a mile stretch, when you get to the end of it, you're dumped right back into traffic. And I think an even bigger part of that announcement was really the commitment to a process that will get to the entire city. It's not enough just to kind of watch the numbers tick up on mileage. We have to make it so that it's given that you can get to where you need to go on a bike with different lifestyles, different places with kids, go to the grocery store. That is all possible. Many other countries around the world create that experience, but it's all a design decision on how safe it is with the infrastructure.
Speaking of street reconfiguration, we've discussed this with you before, but obviously Copley was closed, which I think most people thought was a great success. Newbury Street on Sundays kind of thing. Are you contemplating more dramatic action based upon those experiences?
We are always trying to push the envelope, and sometimes the benefits are even unexpected from learning. So I took the shuttle this morning as the Orange Line substitute from Forest Hills to the endpoint here at Copley, and the buses get off at that same stretch that was shut down previously between the library and Copley Square. We were able to immediately put that into effect as soon as we learned about the Orange Line shutdown, to create a space that buses could unload. It could be a terminal and a hub, and it's closed to all except for emergency vehicles and these transit buses, because we knew what the impacts on traffic were when we shut down that area months ago during the summer. So being able to have that data, see in real time how it can be used, whether in a permanent situation or in a necessary emergency crisis, that's been very useful.
So you are considering some permanent shutdowns as a possibility here?
Our goal as a city should be to use every bit of public property, resources, and value that we have to create community. And we often don't think of our roads as public property, but they are spaces for all. And when we shut them down, you really turn Newbury Street or Dorchester Ave or Blue Hill or Center Street into a park for all, and we want to create that experience more and more.
Yeah, well, how long did it take you to get from Forest Hills to the Copley station?
I think it ended up being about 40 minutes,
It's not
so
that bad.
not too bad.
And that's in rush hour. By the way, this is an idea from Mark in Brookline. I don't know if anybody's talked about this, but he's talking about a shuttle bus between the Back Bay and the seaport, because it is a huge hassle. Getting out of the seaport is awful. He wants a bus every 15 or 30 minutes, hop in the Pike, get in the seaport in 10 minutes, like an airport car rental shuttle. Is anybody talking about that?
Back Bay to the seaport, I feel like the number 9 bus already runs a similar. I'll check, but I think we have some buses that maybe make a couple extra steps along the way.
Yep.
But we should have some of those routes covered.
Here's Jay and JP, who is texting saying, does the mayor have any plans to increase the number of alcohol licenses available for restaurants in the city? The incredibly high price for an incredibly limited number of licenses makes it impossible for small independent restaurants to open in Boston city limits. Could you explain the process for increasing the number of liquor licenses in the city?
This is a relic of our history as a city where Protestant, Brahmin-controlled Beacon Hill looked down on Irish American leaders and immigrant communities in the city and imposed a lot of controls to remove power from the city and put it up at the state level. And so we still, under that same system, have to ask permission anytime we want to increase the number of licenses. There is currently a proposal before the Boston City Council, led by City Councilor Brian Worrell, that would infuse us with another batch of new licenses, but it would take serious systemic reform and state law change for us to change the system.
Does that not drive you out of your mind? I know you have to be nice to legislators. This home rule petition thing is such BS as far as I'm concerned. What's your...
You know, there are a lot of aspects of our government and economy and society that I think if we were starting from scratch, we would design differently today. We do our best to identify the opportunities where we can change that immediately, where we can change that in the long term. And there's, would I love to wave a magic wand and make sure the city has more say? Absolutely. But we're making it work as it is. Okay, I'm getting a
We have a live... Oh, sorry, yeah.
that... I have a text message with some secret information. Okay, today's bike network includes 59 miles of off-street paths and 17 and a half miles of separated bike lanes. So we would look to that 17 and a half is really the type of bike lane that we're looking to add to.
So I believe Paul is in the library and has a question. Is that correct? Well, 2 Pauls are walking to the mic at the same time. There's one imposter and one real. Which one are you?
The imposter.
Okay, fine. Thank you. What's up, Paul?
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Marjorie and Jim.
Hello.
Long time, first time. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, first of all. I am particularly, yes, louder. I am particularly excited about the Green New Deal. And I don't know if it's too early for you to comment on the leadership you've chosen and how Oliver Sellers Garcia will interface with Environment Chief Reverend Mariama White Hammond. So anything you want to say is appreciated. And once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Number 1, we are so thrilled to keep building out our leadership team. And Green New Deal is climate. Green New Deal is a lens on housing, on transportation, on building efficiency, on schools. And so Oliver will sit in some ways at the nerve center of all of that, making sure that all the great work happening across many of those cabinets, I would say primarily with the Reverend Chief Mariama White Hammond's Energy, Environment, and Open Space Cabinet, alongside our Chief of Planning, Arthur Jemison, in terms of growth and development in the city, schools with our superintendent, and streets under Yasha Franklin Hodge, and how we get around the city. In the city of Boston, the 2 largest sources of emissions are buildings and transportation. And across the state, it's the same 2, but flipped in the other proportion once you add in less dense areas. And so we are going to look to infuse a climate angle on everything that we do. It is health, it is jobs, it is safety and opportunity, and Oliver will help coordinate that, and each of the cabinets, including the EEOS cabinet under Chief White Hammond and many others will be marching on with their work and adding those lenses as well.
You want to stay on this because I have a question off climate.
Go ahead.
Mayor Wu, I know you were with where the president came into town to talk about the moonshot yesterday and the infrastructure law, and if you want to talk about that, it's fine. But obviously his latest victory was the Inflation Reduction Act, the climate portion, which is more than $1/3 trillion. Is it too early for you to know specifically what that law means for Boston?
I think first of all, it's incredibly exciting that the president chose Boston as a stop to highlight huge investments in infrastructure and in health. I think it shows, one, that we are a platform that the rest of the country is looking to in terms of what these investments will actually mean, whether it's at Logan Airport and all the changes happening there, or many of our corridors, important streets and roads in the city of Boston that are getting redone and redesigned. It's also a mark to just how fierce our federal congressional delegation is. The president kind of joked about this in his remarks, but they are really the leading power source nationally in terms of local delegations, and we're very, very grateful to have them advocating for us in the combination of positions and skills and experiences they bring. We as a city are going to be applying for about as much of the federal grants that are now available as possible. Many of these resources make it so that you have to come with proposals of projects. We've put forward a big application already for the I-90 interchange that would have a lot of impacts on all these categories in partnership with the state. We can put forward individual school buildings to convert to LEED Platinum or energy efficiency. And so it's really ours for the taking. And our goal has been to get shovel ready and prepared in as many ways as possible, because the Inflation Reduction Act adds levers on industries, shaping the incentives and kind of pushing the market in certain ways, whether it's for electric vehicles or others. It creates direct consumer rebates and incentives, and then it just creates pots of funding that cities have to go out there and put their best ideas forward to grab.
Our number is 877-301-8970 if you'd like to call or text Mayor Wu, who'll be with us till the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours. Let's get to the late school buses issue. I mean, this has been a chronic problem for years, made worse this year because of the orange line. Is it just the traffic, or is it... I mean, I just can't imagine, especially if you're waiting for your kid to come home. I get the morning rush hour, but at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're waiting for the kid who's 5 or 6, doesn't have a cell phone. You're standing there getting frantic on the corner.
Yeah, so I have some numbers here as well, because I think it's important to contextualize. One, this was actually my first experience in the BPS organizational bureaucracy. Was when I was an intern for Mayor Menino. I was raising my sister at the time, and so frustrated that every day we didn't know when her bus would get to school. She would report missing 20 minutes of the first period every single day, or when she would get home. And so eventually Mayor Menino said, just go across the street. At that point, the school department was at 26 Court Street, and go work the bus hotline for a while to figure it out. So here I am. I'm a young student, and this is the number that parents call frantic. And at that point, you had to take the call. There was a form that you'd take out of a stack, write the information on, walk it to the end of the hallway, put it in a basket where someone would then pick it up, call the bus yard to see what was happening with that particular bus. Then they would write a form, and then someone else would bring it back, and eventually you call the parent back. Today, we have GPS trackers of every single bus. We have a new bus driver's contract that includes many provisions that have already benefited in terms of operational efficiencies. So we're in a very different place. The numbers, I think, are a little bit tricky to interpret. Our day one on-time performance in terms of buses getting there before the bell rang was just 50%, right? And that is not anything that you count as a passing grade. But buses that got there within 15 minutes was 77%, and then 92% got there within 30 minutes. By today, we are at over 70% for on time, and 92% within 15 minutes. One tricky part in terms of comparing this data to last year's numbers and the years before. We look about the same or slightly worse than last year, which is huge considering the Orange Line challenges. But last year's numbers and before counted the data differently, where if a bus never made it to the destination, it just didn't show up, it wasn't counted in the denominator at all. And so we're looking at more accurate ways of capturing the data, but most of all, we had no uncovered routes whatsoever. Every single young person who needed a ride on a bus got there, and we're only going to keep going up from here.
We're talking to Mayor Michelle Wu. She's going to be with us to the top of the hour. You can call us or text us at 877-301-8970. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Multiple shutdowns on the MBTA.
Strategy here has to be to ensure that our students have both drivers and buses to get to school.
Will the repairs make our public transit more reliable?
We're talking again about 7th graders and 8th graders who normally would take public transportation to school. So 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds navigating a much more complicated system now that may require many different stops and transitions.
30 days to save the T. Follow all the updates at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you and Sunbug Solar, offering solar and battery storage renewable energy solutions for your home or business. To learn how you can build a more resilient future, you can visit sunbugsolar.com. And Comcast. Xfinity Internet is committed to bringing speeds over a gig to power your devices while fitting your needs and a range of budgets. Learn more at xfinity.com/gig.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browder. She's Marjorie Egan. Mayor Wu, the mayor of the city of Boston, is with us until 1 o'clock. She comes here monthly for Ask the Mayor to take your questions and calls. The question on YouTube about EV charging, is there a question that goes with that? If there is, we'd love to see it. But in the interim, let's go to Miriam in Brookline. You're on with the mayor of Boston, Mayor Wu. Hi, Miriam. Hello, Miriam. Okay, Miriam. We'll try to get back to you in a couple of minutes. 877-301-8970. Well, the listener wants to ask, I don't know I guess this is the question, and I share it. Listener wants to ask about, quote, plans for dealing with street-side electric car charging in the city. Where are we in Boston on that front?
There's been some really, really exciting, creative charging stations that have been set up. I forget which city has been exploring it recently, but you know, there are pictures floating around on social media of attaching wires down from electric poles so that those can be accessible. Right now, we're doing everything we can in municipally owned parking lots and in new development. Any project that's proposed by a developer has to include a certain proportion and number of charging stations, but you know, as someone who has an electric vehicle at home now, the official mayor's car is an electric vehicle too.
Oh, great.
The charging is a significant consideration in just where you can go, when you can go there, and how you fuel up, recharge up in the meantime. And it's a very different mindset than we have when you're getting on the road and you know you can encounter a gas station every once in, you know, no matter where you're going. We need to get to that level of ease and just taking it for granted that you can find a charger.
Do you know anything about wireless charging? I bumped into a guy who's the CEO of a company in Watertown, the new beer garden in Brighton. What's the name of the beer garden? Notch, right near our station. And he's the president of a company in Watertown that does wireless
car charging,
which seems to me, I'll get you the, I don't have any, I'm not vouching for him, it just sounded interesting to me. Can we try Miriam one more time? 2 strikes and you're out. Miriam, hi, Brookline.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes.
What's up, Miriam? You're on with the mayor of Boston.
So the problem is that I take the ride. The ride, yep. I am in a wheelchair, and I cannot get up and walk. It's not like I can rely on Uber or anything else. If the ride doesn't pick me up, I can't move. And last time I took it, they were supposed to come at 2:30. They showed up at 10 minutes to 7. I waited. I was at the doctor's appointment. The doctor let me out, and I'm sitting out in Commonwealth Avenue from 2:30 till 10 minutes to 7 when he showed up. and this is not the first time that it's happened. And I wrote to the ride. They wrote back and, basically, sorry. But what can I do so that it doesn't happen again? Who can I call when I'm sitting in the middle of ComApp so they'll come and get me? Because I was calling like every 15 minutes,
We got it, Miriam. Miriam, let's hear what the mayor has to say in response.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Miriam. That is absolutely awful and quite scary. I can imagine if family members are waiting for you on the other end or an appointment that you had to get to. So a couple things come to mind. One is that, of course, we want to support the MBTA in upgrading, both their staffing and their infrastructure. You could imagine there's no reason in 2022 why you shouldn't be able to track your ride on an app as you would an Uber or a Boston Public School bus. And even if you don't have a smartphone, to then be able to call someone who has access to that tracking app. And so I think there are low-hanging fruit in terms of how just to set the right expectations of when you have to be out there and where that vehicle is. Secondly, many cities and towns are looking to develop other shuttle routes or resources specifically for seniors. I know there are several neighborhoods in Boston that have a senior bus or a senior shuttle that is specifically designed to run a certain route or take people to medical appointments. And so more and more, we have to think about where it is that people are trying to go and the populations and communities that we want to target services to. So that's something that we're thinking about in Boston as well. And then third, just the piece that I'm going to take most immediately to the MBTA, there should be a way for you to reach out to someone and get a response immediately, not within a 7-hour window. And so the fact that you were calling every 15 minutes and not getting anywhere is quite disturbing and something that I hope they'll be able to fix immediately.
If Miriam leaves her phone number with us, can you communicate the results of your office's contact? Miriam,
Absolutely.
Leave your phone number with our producer, and when the mayor's office lets us know how our communication goes, we'll share it with you. Thanks, and we wish you a lot better luck with the ride.
Mira, were you taking some criticism for your endorsement, particularly of Shannon Lees Reardon in the AG's race? Andrea Campbell was your former counselor colleague. She also ran against you for mayor, and she was endorsed not only by Maura Healey, but I think 3 or 4 other attorney generals. So why did you go that route?
I have an agenda for Boston that is the one that community members helped develop with me, and we ran and earned a mandate to move forward on. We have too little time to move slowly on major issues. And so when I look at races, and especially those who will be in important posts at other levels of government, it is about how does this fit into moving an agenda as quickly as possible. Now, I think it is, I'm really excited about where we are as a Commonwealth with this history-making slate of women who will be leading our charge very, very soon. I'm excited to support Andrea and Maura and Kim and Diana and Deb Goldberg returning and everyone. But primaries are about choices, and I encourage everyone to get involved in the political process, to be active, to get in, be a civic participant. And so that's what I do as well. And then when it comes time after the election, when we are in a partisan system, I know very clearly where I stand there. But I think it's also a reflection, we have never had a slate of governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, auditor, all as women. And it shows sometimes in the coverage of what people's motivations are. And I think women leaders especially are often perceived or described as just emotional revenge machines or something like that, when we are able to make effective decisions based on important distinctions and policy choices and shared agenda and goals. But again, I'm excited about where we are as a Commonwealth and eager to make history this November as a state.
Yeah, so obviously you've now embarrassed me so much that I want not ask you if revenge was part of your decision making. But have you spoken to Andrea Campbell since? I know you tweeted. Have you spoken to her since?
We've exchanged messages.
Okay. You also endorsed Ricardo Arroyo before the Globe reported on alleged sexual assault when he was in high school. You withdrew your endorsement. Obviously, Kevin Hayden is now the DA for a full term since there's no Republican opponent. We asked, in the same boat as you, was Ayanna Pressley. We spoke to her the other day. We asked her who she voted for. She said she voted early for Arroyo before the information came out. Who'd you vote for?
I voted for Ricardo.
Early or on election day?
On election day.
Why?
You know, this race has been, I think, so demoralizing for our residents to see months and months and months of campaigning go by, candidate forums focused on the issues and what the very different directions candidates had represented and put forward, again, policy goals and vision represented in that, the track record backing up each of these directions. And then right at the end, after voting had already started with mail-in ballots and then later early voting, to see just major bombshell news dropped in all different directions, just made the whole situation feel very discouraging and off-putting to many, many people that I spoke to. Ultimately, I still came down on, having seen at least some resolution of where part of the allegation stood, and when the documents finally came out, 2-3 days before the election, for me it was about positions. But I'm, again, the primary election season is over, and we're on to November. And in this case, there is no other choice in November, and I'm eager to use every bit of platform and resources that I have in my role as mayor to work effectively with our district attorney and to ensure that the safety and health of our residents comes from an effective working partnership.
But you took that vote after one of the women who said she was a survivor in high school of Ricardo Arroyo came out and said, everything I say is true. So did you doubt her story, or you decided, despite her story, that Arroyo's positions on the issues was significant enough that it overcame that? What was your thinking about her?
I mean, I don't want to get into all the details of files and documents, and I have read through every line of every bit of every piece of paper that was available, and I think the voters have spoken, and ultimately this race ended up focusing by the end less about policy positions and the future steps and actions of this office, which is unfortunate. There's a lot of healing and trust building that needs to happen.
Let's go to Chelmsford, where Giovanni has a question for the mayor of Boston. Welcome, Giovanni.
Well, thank you, Myra. My question is related to the question number 4 that's coming up on the ballot on November, the driver's license to immigrants without proper documentation. Where does the mayor stand on that position?
By the way, if people couldn't hear clearly because of bad connection, a couple of days ago, a question qualified for the ballot that would repeal the law that was just passed over the governor's veto, by the way, to provide driver's licenses for undocumented people in the state. That's what Giovanni's asking about. Where are you on that question, Mayor Wu?
I advocated strongly for the passage of that law and continue to believe vehemently that this is an issue of safety for all of us. We are a home, Boston has been a home to immigrants for hundreds of years. Our immigration system has changed multiple times within that, and the laws now, in some ways, look very differently than they have in the past when different populations were able to come to the city. But the reality is that we are a home to many immigrant residents. 29% of our residents in Boston were born not in this country, and a proportion of our community is undocumented immigrant residents who pay taxes, who work, who contribute to our economy, and who are on our roads. And so we stand with not only advocates for immigrant communities and for social and economic justice, but law enforcement chiefs. Our police departments have all come forward and said, this is in the best interest and the safety of everyone to have a system that is fully regulated in terms of who is on the road and how that fits into all of the permissions and licenses that are needed. Let's make sure that we are including everyone in that system so that we can all be safe.
You know, there's also, thank you, Giovanni. There's another question on the ballot. Everybody knows, I assume. The proponents call it the Fair Share Amendment. Most people call it the millionaire's tax. You support that, correct?
I support passing that so that we will have funding for important infrastructure, transportation, education, and many areas that have been badly underfunded.
In a related question, there is apparently sometime this month, the outgoing auditor, Suzanne Bump, is going to certify how much money should be returned to taxpayers under so-called 62F, the tax cap passed by the voters in 1986. It's, according to the governor, somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 billion, which is a huge amount of money. A lot of progressives think that, one, it shouldn't be returned at all. It should be invested in services that matter to people. Others think, well, if it's going to be returned, let it be returned more equitably so that the bulk of money doesn't go to the wealthy. In her acceptance speech the other night, Governor Healy, let me try a third time. Attorney General Healy and candidate for Governor Healy said unequivocally the money should be returned and returned quickly. Do you agree with her on that issue, or would you prefer to see a different way of handling this thing?
So there are actually two buckets of tax revenues potentially to be returned that I think sometimes get mushed up into one conversation. One is this likely $3 billion that by law, and the law hasn't been triggered that many times in our history, but that by law is owed back to taxpayers. And then another is the proposal that the state legislature had put forward, even not knowing that the law was going to be triggered, to return some of the tax revenues in various ways to residents.
Rebates, they were called.
Rebates,
$250
exactly.
and $500.
I think the real question, again, the first batch is what the law says. It is what it is. We can debate whether that law should still exist in the same wording and language. I think we're in a place that all of that should be revisited coming out of the pandemic and with our economy how it is now. But that second batch, I think, is where the legislature will likely do some work in trying to reconcile, now that the first batch is for sure going out in this amount. Do we still send that directly back, or does that then go to some of the needs that you had outlined?
So would you like to see the tax cap law amended so that it isn't just returned more money to the wealthiest, less money to that portion, the $3 billion? Would you like to see that amended?
So I'll say that our system at the city level, where more than 2/3, about 71% of our revenues come from property taxes, has been different from many other cities, and it has meant that our ARPA funding has been able to go to areas that many cities have not been able to fund. For better or worse, at this moment, we are highly dependent on property taxes. That puts a lot of pressure on residents and property owners. It has insulated us somewhat from the kind of volatility during the pandemic when sales tax revenues tanked and others. But we could use supplementing in terms of where the city's revenue sources come from, and the state is the biggest pot of that, and how they determine where revenues come from and where they go and how much goes to municipalities or other initiatives is a conversation that very much affects how we grow in Boston, what we're able to do with our schools and infrastructure. And so we depend on the state, and we're always hoping for more resources that come down.
Mirwu, Marcela Garcia, Globe columnist, has a piece about this group called SOS. It's a safety of our schools, and it's a group of community members, parents, nonprofit leaders. They're getting involved with school issues of safety because they don't think the school department communicates to them. There was those terrible stories we heard about bullying at the elementary school that shut down because for years it went on, sexual assault in some cases, and parents were unaware of that, or those that were complaining nothing happened. Now this gentleman that's up in Grove Hall, he's involved with Project Right. He complains that they can't get information from the school department, and when there were over 12 guns that were seized from the Boston schools, they didn't know about it in time, so forth and so on. So that's a little distressing.
My kids are in our schools. The number one baseline has to be that our most precious cargo, when our families and parents and guardians drop them off or send them on that bus, is that they will be protected and safe all day. And we have to do a lot better than that. We have to make sure that the full opportunities of the city are open, that these are nurturing, supportive environments. We're standing up our children's cabinet to wrap around all the non-academic resources to our schools so that classrooms and school leaders and teachers can focus on the education of it. That just can't be a question, whether there are safety issues or not. So we've been doing some revamping. There's been a thorough 3-part investigation into what happened at the Mission Hill School, wrapping up very soon. And at all of our schools, increased coordination so that every school leader knows who to call, when, and most importantly, all of the root cause of all of this is that our young people need to have trusted adults and peers in the school. The more we can do that, the more we can break the isolation that people have been feeling, support mental health, the more all of this.
This column is talking about bringing back both metal detectors and police officers in the schools. Do you think that's a correct route to go?
So in fact, many of our schools do have metal detectors that are on, and there needs to be training and usage. When you speak with students, the goal is to provide a full, just a guarantee that there's no question about whether there's any weapons or anything in school buildings. Unfortunately, much of what we see and what I have heard directly from young people who have been involved in incidents of violence or court involved, they share that it is not about what happens inside schools. It is about the trip from home to get to school across different areas of the city where there might be conflicts or different situations. And we have to make sure that how we are thinking about school, again, encompasses everything across our communities as well.
Let's go to the North End. Dan is on the phone. Welcome to the show. Hi, Dan. You're on with the mayor.
Good afternoon. Excuse me.
Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan. I live in the North End. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to express a concern that the neighborhood has with the potential of a marijuana store at the corner of Hanover and Commercial Street, which is directly across from the Coast Guard base. If you're familiar with the area, I'm sure the mayor is. And there's 2 satellite Elliott schools within 100 yards. Now, Madam Mayor, your liaison, Sierra D'Amico, was very, very up top of this issue. She made sure at the last community meeting that she made an announcement that there's going to be a Zoom meeting. My concern, and she did an excellent job getting the information out. My concern is that the state, from what I'm understanding, didn't require a public forum in the neighborhood where this marijuana store was going to go. So I don't know if it's something that's going to happen or...
We understand your concern you expressed well. Let's hear what the mayor has to say, Dan. Thanks for the call.
Thank you for calling in, Dan, and thank you. I will pass that along to Ciara. She works so hard, as do our neighborhood services team, and it's great to hear that the neighborhood had information directly through her and has felt supported in that way. This is an industry that is growing in Boston and is growing according to provisions set up in state law in terms of how many dispensaries and stores should be open, spread out among a certain radius and area, and so it's quite complicated. And I think we, in some ways, did parts of it backwards, where business owners got their applications together and then picked a location and started paying rent to just reserve that spot, and then have to go through the permissions of, is this even the right spot for the neighborhood and for everything else? And so I think in some ways we could have zoned first to make sure we laid out where it would make sense, and then but anyway, we're now backing ourselves into that decision-making process. And it's quite complex and often hasn't ended up with anyone happy in certain places, but I just want to emphasize that these businesses, from what we've seen of the ones that have opened in Boston, have incredible stringent requirements for security, for safety. They are need to meet standards of certain signage and storefront that is quite understated in the neighborhood. And so we have not had any issues with safety or community concerns around the sites that have opened up. I know we always want to make sure that we're following the provisions of distance from places where young people congregate and all of that. And so all of that will pour into the public process, and our role at the city level is to make sure that we can keep you all informed as many of these applicants go through all the various stages of this.
Before you go, you've been doing this less than a year. How much do you miss your privacy? I mean, how much do you miss the fact that you could go to a restaurant and, other than in your neighborhood, probably more often than not, be unrecognized, just travel wherever? How hard is that?
So we took a family vacation for the first time in years. A couple weeks ago, we went up hiking in Acadia National Park up in Maine, and for 7 days I didn't give any speeches, didn't take any selfies, and driving back into the city, I was excited to come back and ready. It's an honor. I mean, it's so interesting these days, though, because everyone is a celebrity in their own way, right? Everyone has access to a YouTube channel or this or that. And so I've had the chance to be in spaces where, whether it's walking down the street with Senator Warren or being in a park when Jaylen Brown was there, watching a basketball game. And so there are many others who have it much harder than I do on that front. I have nothing to complain about. I'm really excited that people value their local officials enough to know who they are and to want to have the interest to come up and have a conversation.
So you're going back to Acadia Ray after the show, I assume, correct? Mayor Wu, thank you not just for your time, but for your fabulous mochi donuts.
Yeah, mochi donuts. How do you spell that? People are asking about them.
M-O-C-H-I. Do you want to say where you got them, or you don't have to?
So these are from Mochi Dough on Newberry Street. There are several mochi donut shops in Allston. Cocoa Leaf in Fields Corner has them. They are the original ones in Boston, but now there's a new place on Newberry Street. So
they are great. They are great.
Mayor, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Always great to see you.
Really appreciate it. That was, of course, Michelle Wu, who joins us once a month for Ask the Mayor, and we're very grateful that she does. Coming up next, we're going to speak with Michael Kirk about this amazing new Frontline documentary about the GOP's basic acquiescence to Donald Trump during his time in the White House and out of the White House. Michael Kirk is next on 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Boston public school parents are continuing to raise concerns about school buses that show up late or not at all. The commission tasked with reevaluating the Massachusetts State Seal is behind on its work, but it's meeting again today. And we'll hear how the Orange Line shutdown has affected foot traffic in downtown Boston. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for GBH comes from you and the law firm of Davis Malm, taking care of your business from startup to sale. Learn more at davismalm.com. That's DAVISMALM.com. Davis Malm. Lean, agile, strategic. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Frontline's latest film examines how one lie, echoed and amplified across the country, has weakened our system of democracy. Obviously, that's Trump's lie about the 2020 election, and how most, if not all, with I guess one or two exceptions of his fellow GOP leaders, have fallen into line. Yesterday, Ken Burns, today Michael Kirk. My God. Joining us now is one of the most important filmmakers in this country, Frontline writer, producer, and director Michael Kirk, to discuss his great new documentary, Lies, Politics, and Democracy. It's available to watch online at pbs.org/Frontline. Michael Kirk in the flesh. How are you, Michael? It's great to see you.
Well, I'm in the flesh.
You are.
He's
in the
here.
flesh.
So, Michael Kerr, congratulations again, as I always say, because you guys at Frontline do unbelievable work. But tell us how you started this thing. We always talk, or newscasters always talk, about the peaceful transition of power and how that differentiates us from so many other countries. So how did you begin this documentary?
You mean literally?
Literally, with the presidents.
So we had this
or
idea.
Almost presidents, sorry.
We had this idea that if one thing could encapsulate or capsulize or whatever it is, the problem, it was to watch Hillary Clinton and everybody we could find in a kind of row conceding, even though they're at the moment of their concession, and they are all devastated, they are all angry, they all wish they would have won, but they all say basically the same thing. For America, for the American people, I concede and wish my opponent good luck, and I will offer to help. And that we went all the way down the list to Alf Landon.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him.
Oh, I said Wendell Willkie. Did I have the wrong guy?
I think it's Alf Landon.
Well, whoever he was. Losing to Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Somebody a long time ago.
Yeah, okay.
Al Gore, George Bush, all
everybody.
the people. Yeah,
and Gore,
conceding.
I thought, was amazing.
He
Gore
was amazing.
He says, the Supreme Court has made its decision. I don't agree with it, but here we go. And so we go all the way down the line, and then we hit rewind and come back up to Trump saying, we won. Actually, we really won. In one of the worst examples of bad sportsmanship ever, and lots worse than that. And we just thought it's a great way to say, this is what it's about in a tradition of peaceful transition. This man and his party did something that has never been done before.
Can I just say one thing? By the way, I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but the brilliance of that opening is even more dramatic, because as soon as you've gone through everybody, maybe to Alf Landon, maybe to Wendell Willkie, whoever it is, and you go back to Trump, as Trump is telling the lie, the first word of the title of the film, lies, comes up on the screen. Lies, politics, and democracy. We talked the other night on television, and while obviously Trump is the centerpiece of the story is really about the complicity, the servile nature of GOP leaders who, for a brief shining moment, Ted Cruz at the Republican convention when he refused to endorse Trump after Trump had said his wife essentially was ugly and his father was involved in the assassination of JFK. Lindsey Graham, who said on the floor of the Senate after January 6th, it's been a great ride, but I'm done. We're done. And Kevin McCarthy, who basically blamed the soon-to-be likely Speaker of the House, blamed Trump for January 6th. Every one of them returned to the fold, and then some. And the mystery, and I know you have some theories and some are expressed in the film, the mystery for me is why. What's your analysis? What is the answer to the why question?
So who knows really, but I think, given that we interviewed 30 people for this film, no Democrats.
I know that.
And we just, all right, come on. We get, when you're interviewing these people, you get right down to it with them. Come on. Why? Why Trump again? Why go back? Why give him another chance? Why bring, as Kinzinger says, Adam Kinzinger says, bring the paddles back and shock him back into political life? What's it about? And the best explanation, the simplest explanation is the definition of a politician. And the definition of a politician is I want to get reelected.
Yeah.
And I'll do anything necessary to get reelected. And we saw all of those people, 197 Republicans on the night of January 6th, do something to get reelected because there was a base, what Biden calls the extremist MAGA Republican base. That base, Trump brought them in, and they didn't know who they were, they didn't know what they were, but by God, they were going to do whatever they had to do to get reelected by those people. And I think it might be as simple as that. And isn't that the heart of Faustian bargains? One simple act you'll make.
Well, you also talked about how a lot of seasoned veteran politicians think that the new guy in town or new girl in town is going to come in and they're not going to know what they're doing and they're going to be able to push them around.
Right.
McConnell and others thought that about Trump, but it didn't work out that way.
Manipulation is the word they use, and they use it about themselves. They thought they could manipulate him. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, they had for the first time unified government, first time in a long time, unified government, the White House, the Senate, and the presidency, and this chucklehead from their point of view that they could just, he'll become the most generous thing I heard any of them ever say, because we were during that time also gathering. We knew someday we would make a film like this film, and that it would say what happened with the Republican Party. So we were always in the back of our minds, and when they would say something like that, you knew they didn't understand who he was, because we had made the choice, that film, that year that he was elected, and you could see there was a lot more to Trump as his ability to manipulate, recognize the crowd, know what the MAGA base, as they call it, wanted and what they were after, and it became kind of clearly obvious to us that that's what he was going to do, was actually manipulate them.
Well, here's some sound from Robert Costa. He's a chief election correspondent for CBS News. He was talking about a call between Trump and then Speaker of the House Paul Ryan after the white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, when they were screaming, "Jews will not replace us," and the torches and all that kind of stuff. Here it is.
Trump is on the phone with Paul Ryan and saying to the House Speaker, "Paul, you don't understand me and you don't understand my political appeal. These are my people. I'm standing with my people." Ryan says, "I don't care if they're your so-called your people. You have to disavow the white nationalism." Trump says, "You don't get it, Paul. These are my people."
This was just one of many times where I thought to myself, well, this is Charlottesville, that's it. That's it. He's in big, huge trouble now, especially after Heather Heil, that young 32-year-old woman, was killed by the car there. Yeah. I thought that was it, but of course, that wasn't it.
No, it's a cliche to say cats have 9 lives, he has 10. It just literally, it was not going to... I think maybe the Republicans, there were many times they could have stopped, but when they didn't, as people in the film tell us, it was an inflection point. The Republican Party made another decision to go along with this man, now an identifiable racist. And the fact that they didn't mention his name when they wrote all their tweets, they abhorred racism, but they didn't say, "Mr. President, back up, please," on behalf of the Republican Party and whatever. They didn't do that. They were afraid of him. By then, they were afraid of him. And this is only the summer of 17. So you sort of knew where they were headed, and it's one of the major... I think there are many people who believe, and I believe, that that's the inflection point where everybody said, "Oh my God, I'm in too deep."
Yeah, we're talking to Michael Kirk, whose latest aired a couple of days ago, but you can check it out on the website. It's called Lies, Politics, and Democracy. It's available online at pbs.org/frontline. You know, the only thing that doesn't make sense about all these things, about the only thing we stand for is re-election, he controls the votes, these are my people, etc. They could have ended it all by just, I don't remember what the count was, so many more votes after he was out of town on the second impeachment. Had there been a conviction vote, the common sense, and I know common sense doesn't often apply when the politics of Donald Trump's involved, where were the MAGA people going to go? They're not going to vote for Democrats. They're deeply involved in government, as you know, and I assume listeners know. Had he been convicted, he would have been barred from running for federal office. He couldn't run as an independent or a third party, as he threatened to the chair of the RNC when he called her the executive director of Mitt Romney's niece, I think.
Ronna McDaniel.
She is. So what was that about? Was that about fear, do you think? Or they just were so caught up in the web of Trump that they couldn't escape even for that one final vote?
I think you look to McConnell as an example. He was running the Senate. He was the guy. You thought he had been so outraged on the floor and said, "This is it. Trump was responsible," and he said the words, and that's why they took down the building. We talked to his former chief of staff and maybe closest aide about what is it with McConnell in this moment. And even he was a little mystified by it. It is obviously a political calculation that says the guy is dead. He's gone. That's it. He'll never come back. How will he ever come back from this? We don't need to do this. This just makes the Democrats look powerful. It gives them all kinds of things they're going to need for the 2022 midterms, and it gives them everything they'll need for 2024. I'm not going to go along. I'm not going to play ball with them. He's over anyway. You talk about a miscalculation. That's the generous view of what Mitch McConnell did, was miscalculate politically. I think it might have been even a little deeper than that in terms of what they were talking about inside the party and what they feared because of that threatening phone call to Ronna McDaniel, where Trump said, "I'm out of here. You guys haven't been with me. I'm taking my MAGA people, and we're going to take millions of voters plus hundreds of millions of dollars away from the Republican Party. The Republican Party will never be the same again." Well, when that threat is made by somebody like Donald Trump, who you just don't know you've had 4 years of miscalculating about the guy, you say, "Oh my God, well, let's do whatever we can."
You know, when I'm looking at you and you're talking about these Republicans in a semi-sane fashion, did I read in some article that you were at the convention? Were you in the room when Cruz gave the speech where he's getting... Okay. So Cruz gives this speech, and the question is he going to endorse? Is he not going to endorse? He doesn't endorse. And then you have, I don't know if it was an aide or another Republican says, one of his aides, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael Kirk, says the reason he chose not to endorse, even though people said it would be problematic, was, quote, "History isn't kind to the man who holds Mussolini's jacket." I have that right?
Right, that's correct.
And
that's
then he chose to hold Mussolini's jacket.
And more.
And more. I mean, are you not, as you're making these films, are you not incredulous about the weakness, the lack of concern for the democracy that these men, for the most part, hold inside their bodies?
I would love to be glib and say, no, I'm completely smooth and solid the entire time we're making the film. The fact is, I have never made a film where I was more alarmed, where I would come home. Well, I was home. I was editing remotely, but where I would come out of my cubbyhole where I edited home and walk into the kitchen and think to myself, I don't know. I made 15 films about the Trump administration. I knew a lot of these things, and we were trying to signal to America that this was it, but obviously even we couldn't bring the message as strongly as it needed to be brought out. And I must say, now, even as I was driving down here, I was thinking, I can't find a silver lining on this one. I'm usually pretty good about saying, all right, well, yeah, but this and that. This one really has knocked me back a little bit. I'm really alarmed.
Well, one of the things I thought was insightful, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but Bill Kristol, who I think of as a normal Republican, did the Weekly Standard for a long time, he said that rationalization is a very powerful force, it turns out, in human psychology. And that rang true. Okay, I'm rationalizing this. I want to get conservative justices. When I'm rationalizing this, I want to get a tax break. And the incremental way people rationalize, that made a lot of sense to me.
Me too. It's the old, boiling the frog in the water. It gets warmer and warmer and warmer. You don't know, and then suddenly you're. And I believe that was the progression for Ryan, McConnell, all of them, moving McCarthy even, and certainly Liz Cheney, who in the beginning stood by him.
She did.
In the first impeachment. But what she had that they didn't have was at some moment a mechanism kicked in, maybe because of her dad and being steeped in all the sort of rigid democracy of the family and the party. I think she had some break that kicked in and stopped her from, saying, "Wait a minute, you guys, what are we doing here?" When Trump had asked McCarthy to get the House to line up and throw out all the votes, and I think she was just the only example of somebody who hadn't sat there all the way out and rationalized, because as Kristol says, it's just an amazing bite. And remember, Bill Kristol, we used to think of as a super arch conservative.
I know.
And now we see Bill Kristol and we say, my God, a liberal, a voice of reason.
Not quite.
Profile
maybe a voice
and
of
courage,
reason.
even though he lost his magazine. But I also wanted to touch on one other thing. You mentioned Liz Cheney. But before I get to Liz Cheney, Mark Leibovich, great journalist we've had on the show, has some Boston connections, used to be the Boston Phoenix.
I know that.
Talked about how a lot of Republicans voted against impeachment or against impeachment or in favor of Trump because they were literally afraid of violence against their families after January 6th. They said, if they do this in the Capitol, what will they do in my house? You have some really chilling tapes of phone messages left for Alyssa Farah Griffin, I think that's how you say her name, who used to be a spokesperson for the president. And she talked about, I'm going to play a clip from her, and she talked about, she was the former White House Strategic Communications Director, said she resigned when she realized the conspiracy theories started to gain more influence over Trump. But I mentioned her in the context of Cheney because it was some women. Cassidy Hutchinson, this woman here, there was another spokesman for Trump, the two poll workers from Georgia, the mother and daughter, women who I think were more courageous in many contexts than men. Here's Alyssa Farah Griffin.
It's hard for me to understand how myself as a 32-year-old woman could have more political courage than these, men who've had these long careers in Washington. I've unfortunately seen a lot of grown men put their political ambitions ahead of their integrity in recent years. I'm still just stunned by people who weren't even in that moment willing to do the right thing.
And as I said, I don't know, you're shaking your head, you don't like her. But
she was fine with putting little kids in cages in Texas.
So is Liz Cheney.
I understand
and
that.
so is Cassidy Hutchinson. So
and
were they all.
She's now on The View as a co-host.
She's now on The View as a co-host, that's right. But at least never better late than never. She turned on him. But facing those same kind of death threats that a lot of these other people were, and I think she and Cassidy Hutchinson maybe shamed some of these 60-year-old men she was talking about.
Well, I don't know.
know.
That'd be great. It'd be great if
Cipollini,
somehow
didn't she shame him a little bit?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Michael Kirk,
well, there goes that.
Can we spend the last few minutes with even more depressing news? You regularly talk to the two guys. We had them on the show maybe a year ago who wrote How Democracies Die. And they basically describe, it's a book, and they basically describe how what we're seeing in this country fits the mold almost exactly that they've written about through history. The equally troubling thing, speaking of Farah Griffin, is she, somewhere in your film, says, and I'm paraphrasing, so please correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't Trump leading the MAGA people, it was the MAGA people who took the lead, and then Trump glommed on, realizing that that was the case. If she's right, the most troubling part of this, some of us have operated under the assumption or hope that when Trump is gone, Trumpism is gone. But what's implicit in Farah Griffin's thesis, correct me if I'm wrong, is if the leaders were the MAGA people, not Donald Trump himself, then the theory is that that should all be transferable to a DeSantis or a Sarah Palin should she win. That is the natural extension of what she's saying, is it not?
The progression is definitely Sarah Palin too. I mean, it's Newt Gingrich to Sarah Palin to Donald Trump to angry, we've talked about this many times in films I've made, angry American citizens, economically dislocated, angry about so many other things, who become the MAGA people. They are out there. Trump sees them, taps into them, activates them, they get bigger, they see this, they metastasize, if you want to use that word, they get bigger and bigger. And what she is saying is, what Alyssa was saying was, as you looked at that crowd at the convention, suddenly you saw a roar when they throw Cruz off the stage. Trump realizes, oh my God, I may not, this could happen to me. In the same way that he was worried about what happened to Gaddafi, and all these other leaders always are, these authoritarians. Putin worries about Gaddafi more than anything else. This is the kind of calculus that he's making, and he looks out there and he says, I'm going to do what I can to drive what they want. And he does. The real question, the people that really know are sitting around and talking about this after you finish talking to the democracy guys, and they're just unbelievably useful and brilliant and articulate about it, is suddenly in a lot of conversations we started to have with people, they would say, here's the thing, Trump was kind of a dope. He didn't really have an ideology. He didn't really know what he wanted to do. He was kind of bouncing from thing to thing. And the MAGA people were going along with it, and they liked it, and it was kind of fun, and he was draining the swamp. But what he did in his actions was reveal something that we say at the end of the film that Jelani Cobb talks about. Thought the norms and as I did, the norms and the guardrails were really up. And don't worry, even if the guy is the way the guy is, and even if the Republicans are collaborating, we're okay. We've got a constitution and whatever. And what we've realized, what a lot of people say is what we've realized is that the guardrails are down. They don't exist. They're just a kind of set of norms that we generally agree on. But if somebody is determined to systematically or unsystematically knock them down and get reelected for it and get rewarded for it, then you're in big trouble. So suppose you had a candidate in the Republican Party who comes in next time who's not Trump, who's somebody who's more calculated. Maybe he went to Harvard Law School. Maybe he's a governor of a state. You could say to yourself, that's something really to be concerned about. And that's in the end of the day, when you ask me what am I most worried about, I'm most worried about the fact I thought there were guardrails, you guys. And the fact that they didn't hold, the center, as we used to say, didn't hold, and there was something else that he was able to do and that they were able to do, and they just kind of ran roughshod over it, scares the heck out of me.
You must be great at a cocktail party, I'll tell you. Hey, Michael Kirk's coming.
You are talking about Ron DeSantis, the very smart guy in
Oh,
Florida.
I don't know. Is that right?
He's a number 2 guy.
Does he fit that description?
He does fit that description, yeah. Okay.
You know, Michael, every one of these 15, as you say, you've made about Trump is incredible. I would urge people actually even to go back. We talked about this the other night, but time's over. Go back to The Choice, which you do every 4 years, about the 2 candidates, 2 hours each, and watch the 2 hours on Donald Trump and how this evolution of lies happened. The film is fabulous and really important. And we thank you for your time. And it's great to see you, in person. It's incredible.
Good to see you.
Michael Kirk.
Maybe I'll run into you in the supermarket in Brookline. Nice to talk to you. We're talking to Michael Kirk, director of Frontline's newest film, which you should really check out, Lies, Politics, and Democracy. It's available to watch online at pbs.org/Frontline. Coming up, CNN's John King. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday from the Boston Public Library.
The Moth Radio Hour has been sharing spellbinding stories and tales since 2009, and now is your chance to see it live, on stage. This October, The Moth will be at the Wilbur Theater, and GBH has your tickets to see it. Come hear some of the best storytellers work their craft, sharing true tales live and in person. Experience it for yourself on Thursday, October 27th. Learn more and reserve your seats today at gbh.org/moth.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Mass Autobahn, where you can get outdoors and explore hundreds of trails at over 60 wildlife sanctuaries across the state, from the Cape to the Berkshires. You can start your adventure at massautobahn.org. And the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. You can experience the magnetic portraits of Barack and Michelle Obama at the MFA for 8 weeks. Ticket reservations available at mfa.org/Obama, sponsored by Bank of America.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We will not be here on Friday. We will return to the library next Tuesday, but now we're joined on Zoom by CNN's chief national correspondent, John King. John, of course, hosts Inside Politics weekdays at noon. Thanks for your patience, John. Good to see you.
Glad to wait. It was an interesting conversation. Happy Tuesday.
Oh,
He's
my
unbelievable.
goodness.
Happy Tuesday to you, too.
It's great, if upsetting, 2 hours on Frontline. But anyway, John King, so I don't know how much faith we should have in economists with their different predictions about what's going to happen on jobs and what's going to happen in inflation. It doesn't seem that they were right with their rosy predictions about inflation, which is not really proven true here. We're still in a mess with inflation.
It'd be interesting to see today's report. It's not a horrible report, but it's just not as encouraging as many economists predicted, and certainly as the Biden and Democratic political teams would hope. It shows prices moderated a little bit last month, but not that much. So what is the psychology of the voter? Number one, about inflation and the economy. If you look at the data, 60% of Americans think we're in a recession. We're not, but that's the funk they feel, right? They're tired. Coming out of a pandemic, now everything costs more. Gas prices have come down, Jim and Marjorie, for about 90 days now. It's better. They're still high, but it's better. So what's the mindset of the voter, right? That I feel better about things, or I still feel about things. And so the competition, 8 weeks from today, tonight's the last primary night. 8 weeks from tonight, we count votes. We find out who controls Congress, who controls all these governor's offices, and importantly, the balance of power in state legislatures. as well. Can the Democrats convince people to make issue number one abortion rights? If they can, then the Democrats might do better than expected. If Republicans can take this report, the Fed's going to raise interest rates again next week and say, aha, see, the economy's still in a rut. So what is number one in people's minds when they go into the voting booth or when they drop their ballot in the mail? I think that's the fascinating competition over the next couple of weeks as people start to make up their minds and start to, we follow this every day. Most people, have lives, and so they're just starting to come around to this choice. But the new inflation report today it's a reminder. You see, the markets are down because they know the Fed's going to raise interest rates. That's the economics of it. The politics of it is, can the president convince people things are at least getting a little bit better and they're going to keep getting better? It's a big challenge.
I've noticed that there are several people who were very much 100% pro-life. I'm going to outlaw abortion until the Supreme Court did just that, and they saw the blowback all across the country. And now they're not exactly as staunch about getting rid of abortion rights as they were. And I wonder if that helps them, if it maybe helps those women, and I'm sure some men too, that were going to vote based on abortion, because now they're backtracking.
Right. You see a lot of them either taking more extreme positions off their websites or just changing their policies and saying, my new position is this. A good campaign, if you're the opponent, a good campaign reminds people, this is what Marjorie believed a month ago. Here's what Marjorie says now, and it calls into question authenticity. And that particular issue, the abortion issue, is one of the issues. You can change your mind about certain tax policy. You can change your mind about certain things. It's hard, especially if you're a person, 30, 40, 50 or more. It's hard to explain to people, not that you can't change your mind and not that you can't make a genuine case that you've changed your mind, but I think it's harder in the political environment to convince people that change is genuine. And again, that's part of the big competition. If you watch now, if you look at the ad spending, for example, across the big major campaigns, Democrats are putting a lot of money into ads on the choice issue, the abortion issue. And some of them make that very point you're making, Marjorie, that the Republicans are now trying to run and hide from their record and what they would do if given power. You see the Republicans spending a ton of money on the crime issue and on inflation. They're trying to convince people that that's what you should vote on. And who are these ads aimed at? In the big statewide races, the suburbs, because the suburbs decide close elections. The suburbs revolted against Donald Trump, which is why Nancy Pelosi is Speaker and why Joe Biden won in 2020. If we were talking 6 or 8 or 10 Tuesdays ago, I would tell you that the data tells us the suburbs are frustrated with Joe Biden. They're frustrated with the length of the COVID pandemic. They're frustrated with inflation. They're frustrated with crime. And the Democrats were going to get whacked. Now, I think that's more of an open question. The Dobbs decision certainly has given Democrats an opportunity to fight for the suburbs, which, again, in most of these big statewide races anyway, will be the deciding place.
Can we go back for a minute, John King, to the economic side of things? In addition to the inflation numbers, my totally unscientific thing is, while the 8.3 number, if that's what it was this morning, is still troubling, most of us gauge, if we're doing it quickly, inflation's impact on us by what we see at the gas pump, and the prices have come down pretty dramatically, which I assume is comparatively good news for Biden. The thing I was not even aware of until I heard it on both CNN and NPR this morning is there may be a rail strike on Friday, which from the analysts I heard on your station and NPR could be an unmitigated disaster in terms of the supply chain. And I'm saying to myself, there hasn't been a president in recent memory who's closer to unions than Joe Biden. So you'd say, well, Biden should be able to talk them into a delay. But the flip side is, I assume the union thinks we have the most open ear to our issues ever, and maybe now is the time to take dramatic action. Do you have any insight as to what's likely to happen Friday?
I don't have any insight as to what's likely to happen. I can tell you that the President of the United States is being kept constantly up to speed on this. Another guy from Dorchester, who happens to be the labor secretary of the country right now, the former mayor, Marty Walsh, is deeply, and I could add a few more deeplies, involved in this, as is the White House economic team. They see the threat here, Jim. They forget there's an election in 8 weeks for just a minute. It's just a bad thing, right? You're in an uncertain economy. You never want to disrupt the supply chain. You just don't. And shutting down the rails, I think it's 60,000 rail workers threatening to go on strike as early as Friday. So in any event, that's a bad thing for the American economy and a bad thing for any president even though you're not directly involved per se. You're just the guy in charge when it happened. With an election 8 weeks from now, which, this inflation report's kind of a flat line, most of the recent data has been encouraging for the president, for the Democrats. His approval rating still historically low, but trending in the right direction. Consumer confidence still low, but trending in the right direction. Gas prices, coming down. That's the right direction. So at a time when there have been a lot of at least somewhat encouraging signs for the Democrats, this would be a 2x4 to the head. It's a Dorchester term. And so it'd be interesting to watch. But they are deeply, deeply involved in this, in trying to, if they can, move the negotiations along. It'll be interesting to see as you get later in the week. Do you have formal discussion of offering mediation, or getting the labor secretary not just on the phone, trying to talk people through it, or actually in the room getting involved? That's what you should watch for as we go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Talking to John King from CNN.
John King, what is happening with the gay rights vote in the Senate?
It's the when is the question. Chuck Schumer says it will happen. The calendar, because of the election, the legislative calendar is very short. So the first they have to file cloture, which is, to get you through the first hurdle. To bring legislation to the floor, you need 60 votes. They are working this incredibly hard, largely Democrats working it, but Susan Collins, the Republican from Maine, Rob Portman, the retiring Republican from Ohio, among those trying to convince enough of their Republican colleagues to vote yes. They obviously don't have, they would do it today, Marjorie, if they had the 60. They don't. So again, I think that's a watch where they are. Schumer says he wants to at least start the procedural stuff this week. So watch as we get from Thursday into Friday. Are they moving forward, or is there a delay? And if there's a delay, there's a simple reason for it. They're not at 10.
I know that Republicans are more conservative, obviously, on so-called cultural issues. But don't the polls say that most Americans now are
71%?
Yeah. So, and these are senators. They're running statewide. Why not vote for gay rights at this stage of the game? I don't get it.
I'll give you, on policy grounds, one of the things that Senator Collins and Tammy Baldwin, the Democratic senator, who's taking the lead on this issue for the Democrats, they're working on some religious liberty language to create a carve-out for people who, for legitimate religious reasons, object. And they're trying to work on language that satisfies everybody. It's a difficult one. That's a genuinely difficult issue to work out. They say they're making progress at it. And I think that is a legitimate concern for several people. So here's the question. If they come up with language that satisfies some of the legitimately skeptical, the people who say, I want to vote for this, but I need to see this language. When you see those hands going up saying, thank you, we've worked this out, I think this is a reasonable compromise, then can we get to 10? And if you can't get to 10 then, that's when I say the cynicism would kick in, which is, if you are a Republican on the ballot this year, it's a midterm election year, the primary goal number one is to turn out every single person in your base. So are you worried about offending Christian conservatives? Are you worried about offending evangelicals? Are you worried about offending people who just don't want to give the Democrats a win? So the more cynical reasons, I think, would come into play later in the week if they can work out this legitimate question about language around religious freedom and religious liberty.
Yeah, by the way, and I know you agree with this, Marjorie, the Republicans call it a cultural issue. It's a basic human rights issue.
It's a human rights issue.
And by the way,
That's why I said so-called.
The reason for this vote, just so people are clear, is because of what Clarence Thomas said in the Dobbs decision, is we should use the same precedent that there's nowhere in the Constitution that says you have a right to an abortion. He argues the same absence of language in the Constitution applies to decisions like the Obergefell case, the same-sex marriage case, and so the Democrats are saying, let's not wait for the Supreme Court to do to gay marriage what they did to abortion. Let's codify it in the federal statute.
But one last thing about this, John King. If they get the 10 votes and then they vote in the Senate, what do you think happens?
I think that same-sex marriage becomes codified. It becomes the law of the land. Now, it is the law of the land at the moment, because of the courts. But I think that would be a huge. I think that I think that would just be a huge affirmation to the point you're making. You want to call this a human rights issue? You want to let's call it a human decency issue.
Yeah.
Well, let's just call it the golden rule. We learned this so early on. And for people who might have had some whether it's an age or a generational or a cultural or a religious even hesitancy or objection, we've lived long enough now. Look around. There are amazing, loving, wonderful people in your office, in your family, on your streets, on your subway car. We're good here. This hurts nobody. There's just no argument. We now know it, right? We knew it anyway, just based on the principle of decency. Well, we now know it because it is everywhere around us. These loving couples. Who cares? Just move on. I don't get why we have to get so caught up in these things anymore, because we have living, breathing, wonderful, loving proof all around us that this is nothing to worry about. Actually, it's something to celebrate.
Living, wonderful, warm, loving proof of couples, and then there's Ginny and Clarence Thomas. So John King didn't say that. I said this. John King, I'm not an historian of politics like you are. I don't remember ever a season where one party spent as much money trying to advance the cause of the more extreme candidate in the other party in the hopes that he or she would be nominated and they're easier to beat. The reason I bring this up is you say this is the last primary day. One of the primaries is in New Hampshire to find out who's going to be the Republican to run against Maggie Hassan. And correct me if I'm wrong, a ton of money is, I got it slightly wrong there, let me reiterate. A ton of money is being spent, I think, by Democratic-leaning PACs to trash this state Senator Morse, who was nowhere near as nuts, my word, not yours, as this, I can't pronounce his name, Baldock guy, who was also running, who believes we should get rid of the FBI, we should get rid of the Department of Education. He's all trumped up, and then some. Was this as often used in the past as it has been in 2022?
I don't recall it being used as often in as many races. Obviously, everything's more expensive now. It's just the inflation, the passing of time. So the dollar figure isn't as important as I think the number of races you've seen it in. And you have this is actually causing some bad blood here in Washington among the people like the Liz Cheneys and the Adam Kinzingers of the world, Republicans who serve on the January 6th committee, who should be applauded for their stand on principle, willing to stand up to Donald Trump. And so you have a lot of those Republicans are saying, that when you have a candidate out there who is not an election denier, somebody who's running, who voted to serve, in the case of Peter Meyer, the House member from Michigan, who lost his primary, and Democrats put in a lot of money supporting the other candidate, because they think they can beat him in November. So you get the raw politics of it in a year where the Democrats' grip on the House is very tenuous. Republicans only have to win a handful of seats, and Kevin McCarthy is the next Speaker of the House, or some Republican is the next Speaker of the House. You get the raw politics. Let's do everything we can to create a more favorable battleground map for November. I get that. The issue is, how important is that, right? And so there's some bad blood here. Again, I understand tactically what the Democrats are doing. You try to get a weaker nominee. That specific issue has caused a lot of bad blood among people who say, wait a minute, you want us to stand up to him. You want us to stand up for what is right. And now you're helping, you're messing with the system. Welcome to politics, I guess, but this one's going to carry over. There's some bad blood in the water because of it.
So I'm curious, we saw pictures this morning and last night of Donald Trump riding his golf cart out at his golf course. I think it's in Virginia right outside of D.C. Yeah. And there's no clubs in the golf cart. And then we see a picture of him standing surrounded by a bunch of other men, some of whom are not in golf clothes and not a golf club in sight. At least I couldn't see one. So what was he doing out in the golf course, having a meeting with, looked like, 10 other guys? I thought it was because he didn't want anybody to hear anything on the telephone or something like that. But I don't know. What's the speculation?
It's bad timing, Marjorie. I sent my spy drone to the shop this week. I wasn't able to get it up in the
That is horrible.
Look, I don't know. I don't know, and I think it's important when we don't know in our business to say I don't know. The interwebs are, full of various theories about why he decided to make a surprise visit to the Washington D.C. area, which he has not visited very often since leaving. I think this is only his second time in the greater Washington, D.C. area since he left office. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, you can look around and see, a number of different things happening, including the latest reporting more than 30 people in Trump's orbit, White House people, campaign people, finance people, getting subpoenas from the Justice Department as part of the grand jury investigation into Trump's efforts to keep power. Does this have anything to do with that? I just don't know. And I think in our business, whether we're talking about Democrats or Republicans, when you don't know and you don't have information, you say, I don't know, and you keep trying to find out.
And talk show hosts irresponsibly speculate. That's the only difference, John, between us and you. So, John, before you go...
You have greater freedoms than I do.
We do have greater freedom. Before you go, Trenny, now Casey, formerly Kuznarek, apologized to me on the air. She's from NBC Sports Boston, at the top of the show for being critical of my assertion for years that it was all about Brady and it was never about Belichick. Where are you on this critical Zen kind of existential issue, John King?
I disagree that it wasn't at all about Belichick. I think in those early years when Tom Brady was not quite Tom Brady, and not the Tom Brady he is today, they won a lot of low-scoring games because of the defense of Bill Belichick. I'm really shocked by this one. I think, number one, you do have to tip your hat to Tom Brady. I think you learn more and more just how great he is. And how great he was when he was in New England. When you see he was somehow able to will his way through some of these close games, and that's his brain. And will is, I'm understating it. He has a great football brain. But the thing about Belichick that shocks me is the fact that he's a coach's son, and he was on great staffs early in his career before he was a head coach with the Giants and elsewhere. He knows the value of having a great staff, and I just don't think they have a great team and a great staff. I have no beef with him having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge and his guys around, and his son's on the staff as well. I got no beef with that. But you got a giant staff in the NFL. Hire some new young thinkers, new offensive thinkers, new defensive thinkers. Bring young guys in to just challenge you. Get in the room, challenge it. Have ideas. Say, let's try that this week. I see a lack of imagination. I also think if you watch other teams, there's a talent gap. So whoever's helping them with the draft, if it's all Bill Belichick, then it is on Bill Belichick. I don't necessarily get into the all Brady, not Belichick thing, but Belichick's in an interesting place right now that I find quite odd, and the team obviously is, at the moment, quite mediocre.
By the way, any Tuesday where you want to tell me, Jim, you were right, feel free, John.
Yeah.
There's no limitation. You can do it at any time during the discussion.
It may be maybe 2 or 3 more Sundays. I might be good.
Thank you.
I was more interested in Giselle telling Tom to get down to the Bahamas because she promised her the vacation, and all of a sudden, Tom is in the Bahamas. I love that. She snapped her fingers, and the greatest quarterback of all time shows up on the beach. How's that, John?
I think she makes more money than him. He makes quite a bit of money. And so I think that, you know what, if she's got sway, God bless her.
John King, it's good to see you. See you next week. Be well.
Thank you very much, John King. Great to talk to you as always. We've been talking with John King. He's a CNN chief national correspondent, host of Inside Politics every weekday at noon, and we always watch it here at the station when we're on the air. Coming up, we're just going to shoot the breeze for a few minutes.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We only have 10 minutes left in the show. We're going to talk, and if you'd like to participate in that discussion, 877-301-8970. How worried are you about the future? No, we're not going to talk about Giselle Bundchen.
No, I thought we might talk about Brady versus Belichick.
No, we're not. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk, off the film, and you heard a description, even if you haven't seen it, from Michael Kirk. Midterm elections coming up, which some of those election deniers are doing very well in these polls. How are you feeling about the future of our country and democracy? 877-301-8970.
When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gets out of warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time.
Teens wake up, get dressed, and head to school even before the sun rises. But students in California are going to grab a little more sleep because the start time for public high school is now 8:30 a.m. Join us for our next installment of School Principles. That's next time on The Takeaway from WNYC and PRX.
This afternoon at 2, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the Museum of Science. It's time to talk about mental health. You can join the conversation at Mental Health Mind Matters, their newest special exhibition. Tickets at MOS.org. And Tools of the Mind, the research and play-based curriculum offers pre-K and K teachers tools designed to help ensure children develop cognitive, social, emotional, and self-regulation skills. Toolsofthemind.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We only have a couple of minutes left, and if you want to join us, you should do it quickly at 877-301-8970. We talked to Michael Kirk, the brilliant filmmaker from Frontline, who's a film about Trump's lies and how everybody's bought in amongst virtually all the Republican leaders. He also includes these two guys, these two writers, Levitsky and Ziblatt, who wrote something called about How Democracies Die. And the basic purpose they have in the film is to say the history of democracies dying is almost a model of what we are now seeing in the United States of America. We have these election deniers. My home state of Pennsylvania, there is a perfectly fine Democratic Attorney General running for governor. He is trailed within the margin of error by a guy running for governor on the Republican side who not only is an election denier, was on January 6th in Washington. He's within striking distance of being elected governor of the state of Pennsylvania. Mastriano,
yeah.
I mean, are you not worried about the next?
Well, let me quote Michael Kirk. He didn't say this to us. He said this to an interviewer from The Guardian, which is a great newspaper. He said, and he made the film we just talked about, there's never been a film I've made where I was more nervous, anxious, and unhappy to make it, unwilling to discover the things we were discovering. Worried is not a strong enough word for how I feel about where we are as a country. I don't think I'm alone. And further down in the piece, the writer calls this film a compelling narrative viewed in totality that resembles a Greek tragedy hurtling towards the inevitable and deadly climax of January 6th.
Well, I didn't read that, but that's exactly how I feel. And he said something very similar, is how difficult the making of this film was. So we want to know, in the next few minutes, how anxious are you about the immediate future, meaning midterm elections, and the immediate future after the immediate future when we begin to talk presidential politics after November 8th of this year, or maybe even before. Alex in Boston, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I am concerned. I'm 55 years old, and I'm not as necessarily concerned about the immediate elections, but I can see sort of if they go the wrong way, just that it's sort of the beginning of the end. I could see another pandemic. I can see more and more political division. I'm really concerned what the world is going to look like when I'm 75 or 80 years old.
Wait a second. I want to make this clear. You start the call, Alex, by saying I'm not terribly concerned about the immediate future, and then you say, however, it may be the beginning of the end. I mean, that's.
Well, I guess what I mean to clarify, Jim, is that each change is incremental, right? So I don't think that if the next election goes the wrong way, that we are immediately plunged into darkness and totalitarianism, and everything bursts into flames.
Well, Alex, can I tell you why you could be wrong, and I hope you're not? If the Republicans regain the majority in the House, which they're likely to, you will have a Republican majority who subscribes to the notion that Donald Trump is a legitimate president of the United States, and you might have secretaries of state in a bunch of key swing states who are also election deniers, who believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump, who will have great sway over how votes are counted in 2024. So I hope you're right, Alex, about the immediate future. I'm far more worried than you are. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
One of the scariest things for me, and I think for young people too, that are going to face this disaster is climate change. If the Republicans are they're climate change deniers, they're not going to do anything. I hope I'm wrong about that, because you do hear even some evangelical groups who are finally getting on the bandwagon and saying, we have to do something here. This is God's earth, and we have to do the godly thing because they're evangelicals. But that to me is one of the biggest disasters, because we're out of time here.
Yeah,
right?
but the only thing that tamps that concern down a bit, and I share it to a degree, is they can't undo the almost $400 billion, the largest climate addressing legislation that has ever passed Congress.
That's true.
That is the law of this country,
true.
And greatly in the hands of the president in terms of how to administer the money.
And you have to think that the zeitgeist, which has changed somewhat already, but it will change further as these horrible disasters continue to happen. Anyway, 877-301-8970. I thought seeing this film was really
terrifying.
I mean, there was an old joke, why not repeat it again, Margie, when JFK wrote Profiles in Courage a million years ago, whenever he wrote it, like 100 years, I don't know, it was a long time ago. He was young when he wrote it. But he said the reason the volume was so short is because there were so few profiles in courage. But there were a lot of them then compared to what we have now. I mean, we all talk about during the Watergate hearing, and what Nixon did was nothing compared to what's going on with Trump, that Republicans went up to the White House and said, you got to go. This is untenable. That's just all over now. It's just...
Well, they all said it for a day after January 6th. And then, as we said to Michael Kirk, that was their day that lived in infamy. Suzanne, you're in Newton. You're on Boston Public Radio. Quickly, if you can. Hi.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
I just keep thinking about denial, and it's almost as if our country is some kind of big dysfunctional family, and I don't even know where these people come from. How can they deny reality? What do they see in this criminal, bizarre, weirdo Trump? And I feel like it's just like this sickening reaction I'm having.
Sarah, I think people live in two different
Suzanne.
worlds. Suzanne, I'm sorry. I think, Suzanne, they live in two different worlds. I mean, you have Tucker Carlson's show is being replayed now on Russian television because he is seeming to be rooting for Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. Fox News is very powerful. It's not just Fox News. It's Dan Bongino, the guy that replaced Rush Limbaugh. It's Ben Shapiro, who leads a lot of the most popular things on Facebook all the time that talk about another world where it's just these Democrats, they're obsessed with Trump derangement syndrome, and they're all they want to do is a witch hunt, and all they want to do is get this guy. And I think a lot of people believe that. Obviously, we have, 70% of Republicans now still think the election was stolen?
70% of Republicans,
because
yeah.
they're not living on planet Earth. You know what I mean?
Suzanne, thank you for the call. You know, I hear you, and I know you have said that many times, and you're obviously factually right, because look at the numbers. I'm still with Suzanne. It is still incredible to me that people who have 2 feet on the planet in those kinds of numbers can believe the thoroughly discredited lies that Trump and his allies have told. And by the way,
it's also the racism,
the few that
Jim.
have challenged,
the racism is huge among it. I mean, there is this whole fear that, oh my goodness, the people coming over the border and African Americans and Latinos and all that. So
and Jews will not replace us.
Oh, the anti-Semitism is huge. And so I think that's what a lot of it is too. He appeals to racists.
Do you subscribe? We only have a minute left. Do you subscribe to the notion we're talking to Michael Kirk about that this all survives him, or this is totally tied to and I mean this sincerely, the brilliance politically of Donald Trump, that nobody, DeSantis, nobody, Abbott, none of these people can pick up where he left off?
Well, I think that Trump will not succeed in 2024, and Ron DeSantis will. And to me, he's a much scarier character.
Because he's smarter.
Yes.
Okay. On that upbeat note, we are done.
Sorry. Okay, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined, I'm really looking forward to this, by NPR's Supreme Court correspondent, Nina Totenberg. She's written a new book, Dinners with Ruth, a memoir on the power of friendship. It's all about, of course, her friendship with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Plus, we're going to hear from Atlantic writer Charlie Warzel, author Malcolm Gladwell, and Lizzie Post on weed etiquette, Jim. What you do.
She's a descendant of the etiquette woman.
That's right. She
Emily
absolutely is. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Mackenzie Farkas. Additional support provided by Gia Orsino, Kenrick Mercado, and Haley Lerner. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to the BPL engineering team, Sai Patel, Steve Baracci, and Angelica Marrero. What's on TV?
A couple of things. Andrea Campbell was with us on the radio yesterday. She's on with TV with me tonight. Interestingly, she yesterday would not commit to debate her Republican opponent. We'll continue that discussion, but more importantly, we're going to talk about where the Democratic nominee for Attorney General is. And by the way, Jay McMahon, who's the Republican nominee, will not only be with us on the radio, he'll be joining me on TV, and I hope at some point there'll be a debate between two candidates. Secondly, a couple of people who are experts in the field of cancer research, following up on the moonshot speech yesterday by Joe Biden as to whether or not this will really make a difference, and if it will, How can we reduce fatalities from cancer by 50% in 25 years, as the president suggested? We'll talk about it tonight.
Sounds absolutely riveting, Jim.
I hope so.
I'll be tuning in at 7 o'clock.
I hope so.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in today. Thank you for people that came down to the Boston Public Library.
Thank you all.
And
Thank
I
you.
hope you can tune in tomorrow and have a great day.